morning, good afternoon, and welcome all to day 3 of the Nature for Life Hub. My name is Eva Gurria, and I'll be your MC for today. Today's theme is about promoting whole of society approaches for nature. It's about bringing everyone on board. Communities, governments, youth, activists, businesses, artists, from all corners of all societies to work together to make the change that we need. In the first session of the day, All In for Nature, we'll look at different ways we need to come together around action on nature. But first, let's hear what Vivek Gaurav, youth activist, has to say about rethinking the nature of development.
Welcome to my home. It is where I feel safe. If someone came into my home and told me to burn all the furniture and then the house itself just to keep warm for one night, I would think they are crazy. The economic rules that define everything, how we eat, how we clothe ourselves, how we live, they are burning the house we live in and accelerating a planetary collapse. We have exceeded 6 out of 9 planetary boundaries. More than 1,000 cities and nations have declared a planetary emergency.
The government says more than half of the country is in state of emergency.
Currently a Category 5 hurricane with maximum winds of 100.
At the same time, half the world lives on less than $10 a day, while 8 billionaires own more wealth than 4 billion people combined. We are, for the very first time in humanity's history, facing the very real possibility of our own extinction. We are starting to recognize that GDP is not an adequate measure of human well-being, and it never was.
It measures everything in short, except that which makes life worthwhile.
And if we redefine GDP, we must also redefine prosperity and economic growth. When we redefine prosperity, we find solutions that work for people and the planet.
The Article 5 of the Constitution of Bhutan demands that every citizen is a role player and a custodian of our natural environment. No amount of money in this world could buy it back for us.
We are starting to decouple growth and prosperity from environmental damage. We are starting to put nature at the heart of sustainable development. We are starting to live within our planetary boundaries.
It seems like something that a lot of people are waiting for. This idea, there is an alternative, there's another way of we can rearrange our economics that is better for the people and is better for the planet. And don't wait for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment is now.
Cities such as Sydney, Melbourne, Berlin, Brussels, and Amsterdam are transforming their urban economies to live within the planetary boundaries while meeting the basic needs of all their residents.
A circular city is a city where we don't have waste. If something is broken, we want to have it repaired. If something can't be repaired, we want to have the materials that the products are made of can be reused.
The entire city is in the midst of a massive shift launched last year, embracing a radical new economic theory with a catchy name, donut economics.
A donut-shaped compass for creating the 21st century that we want.
What makes the theory radical is Rayworth's assertion that governments need to stop looking at GDP growth as the ultimate measure of success.
We're getting very, very clear signals from the Earth system, from climate breakdown, from ecological breakdown, that the way we are pursuing growth is destroying the living systems on which we depend.
The outer ring represents Earth's ecological ceiling, limits on damage being done to the planet, including climate change, air pollution, and shrinking freshwater supplies. The inner ring represents a social foundation, minimum living standards like having enough food, housing, work, and a political voice. The ring in between, described as humanity's sweet spot, is the donut.
So let's leave nobody in the hole in the middle of the donut. Everybody into this lovely green ring.
Solutions can also look like maps of hope, where countries can identify where they need to protect, restore, and manage nature to allow people and nature to thrive.
We have developed high-quality, reliable spatial data on nature for decision makers. These maps of critical biodiversity areas and ecological infrastructure are helping stakeholders to manage land, rivers, and catchments for sustainable development.
Our development and economic models are broken, but we are already creating and testing new ones. We already have nature-positive solutions. More than anything, we need a nature-positive model for development that works for everyone.
Hello and welcome back. In this segment, we'll learn about a new agreement on nature that was adopted in 2022. It's called the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, the GBF, and it sets a course for action for all stakeholders around the world. We'll also hear about Achim Steiner, the head of the United Nations Development Program, the UNDP, explaining how UNDP is aligning its work around a powerful new nature pledge through 2030 to help deliver on the global agreement. Let's listen in.
So here we are in Montreal, and you know what? We have a pact with nature, a pact that will deliver ambition, a pact that will deliver financing, and a pact that will deliver innovative resource streams to the poorer countries, to the developing world, and importantly, it will also work on ensuring benefit sharing from the genetic resources in the developing countries and ensuring that those benefits can go to the people where these resources are. It hasn't been easy, it has been a long road, and we wouldn't have gotten this far if it hadn't been for the extraordinary leadership that we've seen from China. We also express our deep appreciation to Canada for hosting us here in beautiful Montreal. Now the real work, however, begins, because while we have a framework and while we have resources and while we have pathways, we now have to roll up our sleeves and get the work done. The good news is the entire UN system is ready. The good news is that all countries and parties to the convention are ready. And the good news is that activists and scientists across the world are ready. So let's make sure that we step up and implement the pact with nature.
Our natural world is interconnected, intertwined, and integral to human life. It is the global life support system that underpins our societies and economies. Yet, our natural world continues to be plundered and polluted. However, the wonder and beauty of nature and its resilience and potential for recovery always give us hope for the future. Indeed, the historic Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework is already spurring bold new action and fresh opportunities. The United Nations Development Programme's Nature Pledge is our commitment to support over 140 countries to reach their ambitious targets set down in this framework alongside our many partners. It is built upon three distinct pillars. First, it aims to drive a global narrative shift to transform the value we place on nature and instigate behavioral change. That means placing nature at the very heart of development and across sectors including governance, economics, finance, health, and conservation to drive progress across the Sustainable Development Goals. The recognition of the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is just one example of an intervention with the potential to alter behaviors and habits in the long term. Second, an economic and finance system shift is vital. We need a system where natural capital is valued alongside financial and human-made capital. Third, a policy and practice shift is needed to deliver change at scale on the ground, led by countries and rooted in local communities and indigenous peoples. This is already a defining feature of UNDP's extensive project portfolios across the globe and our groundbreaking biodiversity finance initiative. The root causes of nature loss lie within unsustainable production and consumption patterns, but also corruption and misgovernance of natural resources and the invisibility of nature in an economic and financial calculus that drives short-term profit over sustainability. UNDP, as the UN's lead development agency, can make a unique and vital contribution, I hope, in tackling these pressing issues by leveraging our broad expertise and extensive networks on the ground. Simply put, without nature, countries cannot reach their ambitious climate targets nor the Sustainable Development Goals. For too long, we have tried to bend nature to our will. Our common ground with our natural world lies at the heart of the values that define us as humans. We must now walk in lockstep with nature, our most powerful ally, if we are to secure the future of people and planet. Thank you.
The new Global Biodiversity Framework I was talking about was adopted by 192 countries around the world. And this was no easy feat, actually quite the opposite. However, now comes the hardest part, implementation at the national level. So this next segment, from global framework to national action, shows different approaches to supporting national action on nature. Let's get started.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us in this Nature for Life Hub 2023. I hope you have so far enjoyed lots of interesting conversations and learned about outstanding initiatives, tools, and activities that put nature at the heart of sustainable development. Today, we have the opportunity to discuss an ongoing project that is supporting parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity to revise and update their national biodiversity strategies and action plans, the NBSAPs. This project, the Early Action Project, that's its name, provides JEF-eligible parties with financial and technical support to implement the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework that has been adopted almost now a year ago. So to discuss today, I have with us four panelists, Christina Supples, Senior Project Manager at the United Nations Development Programme, Gillian Campbell, the Head of Monitoring, Review and Reporting at the Secretariat of the UN Convention on Biological Diversity, Deborah Kahatano, the Head for Transformation and Mainstreaming for Nature Unit at the UN Environment Programme, and Alonso Martinez, Biofin Coordinator in Mexico at the United Nations Development Programme in the country. So welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today to talk about this rather important project. Let me start with you, Christina. So let's open and let's have a discussion around this project. Can you please present us with the EIS project? What's the state of its implementation? What have we learned so far, so that all of our participants can understand what's that project?
Great. Hi. Thank you, Marion, and thank you everyone attending the Nature for Life Hub virtually. It's great to be here today. As Marion mentioned, the objective of this project is to fast track early actions to implement the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework with a technical and support package and financial provided to 138 GEF eligible parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity in their work to align NBSAPs with the new framework. There are 4 project components that each of these 138 countries is working on. There's a focus on this rapid assessment of national biodiversity targets to align with the Global Biodiversity Framework, an assessment of monitoring systems, secondly, to identify gaps and pathways forward in the decade. There's an emphasis on policy mainstreaming and institutional alignment with the Global Biodiversity Framework, and then last, biodiversity finance activities, which we'll hear more about later in the panel. The project, I'd like to emphasize, is government-run and government-driven, and it does have joint implementation support from UNDP and UNEP in partnership with the CBD Secretariat and the GEF. In terms of where we're at, is it okay if I give an update on that? Okay, great. So governments are currently putting a lot of energy into organizing national stakeholders using this whole of government and whole of society approach that is a focus of the new Global Biodiversity Framework, to begin aligning national biodiversity targets and conservation efforts with those in the Global Biodiversity Framework. And this project is also serving as a basis for upcoming GEF-funded enabling activities designed to support the full NBSAP adoption as a policy instrument, national reporting on progress over the decade, and also the development of biodiversity finance plans. And I think it's just lastly important to emphasize that we've learned so far that mobilizing national teams and building political will takes significant time. And a big emphasis is not just keeping this work within ministries of the environment or ministries of natural resource, but really using that whole of society approach. And that does take significant time. So countries have been spending time building steering committees and generating that important political support for biodiversity and the Global Biodiversity Framework across sectors, and also linking it to sustainable development. And in the lead up to COP16, it's wild to think we're already talking about that over the next year. We expect to see global efforts align with national policy and this important global commitment to biodiversity and sustainable development. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Christina. It does seem like it's a pretty important project to support the parties, to the CDB to update their NBSAPs. Now that we have this framework, there is action to be taken. So thank you so much for the presentation of that project. That's actually a great bridge to my second question. And for that one, Jillian, I'm going to turn over to you at the Secretary of CBD. So Jillian, could you tell us why, from the perspective of the CBD, this is a project that is relevant for the swift implementation of the Kunming-Montreal, with this idea of an early action from the countries?
Yes, thank you. So in the previous strategic framework, which is the ACHI framework, as many of you may know, the NBSAP development was very slow. And what we experienced was that many countries were not really implementing actions. They were trying to focus on planning around biodiversity. And so we had this big time lag where development of the NBSAPs was ongoing, but action was halted. And so I think this is one of the reasons, if you look at a lot of the assessments that have been done, that the framework was not met. And so as countries went to COP15 to agree on the Global Biodiversity Framework, there was this recognition that we can't stop actions that are already happening. However, we need to look and make sure that those actions are aligned with this framework. They're aligned with the needs that the planet has in terms of conserving biodiversity and achieving the convention. So how do we do this very quickly? And so the parties to the convention agreed that we would have updated INVISAPs by COP16, which is only about a year away, or at least have national targets which have been aligned with the Global Biodiversity Framework by COP16, and that as they're developing these, as I said, implementation of existing actions wouldn't stop. And so to make this happen, as Christina pointed out, there's a need to look to see what the actions already being implemented are, how well do they align with the new framework, where are the gaps, how can those gaps be filled, and how do we move towards a whole of government, whole of society approach. And so this project is very much trying to address these gaps that were experienced and get the framework off onto the right foot so that it will be achieved. Thanks.
Thanks, Gillian. Excellent. Yeah, we have heard this idea from the parties of having, you know, this early action, and especially the delays that the world has been facing due to the global pandemic. It's really innovative and interesting to see this effort and support to the parties in several steps. Actually, talking about the technical support, I'm guessing a big part of the Jeff-funded project is to provide financial and technical support to the parties that receive, the funds and the support. I understand that in this project, UNEP, WCMC, and UNDP are working together to prepare and disseminate technical guidance to governments counterpart and, other actors from national teams involved. So let me ask maybe Deborah Kahatano, what type of technical support is or will soon be available to the JEF-eligible countries, and how is it targeted to meet the needs of individual countries? Because I'm guessing not all of the countries are at the same pace or at the same stage in revising their NBSAPs.
No, thank you so much. Yeah, you're right to say that the support we're providing is both technical and financial. So in terms of financial support, we are providing grants to the countries, and these grants enables the provision of specialized technical support to parties in aligning the National Biodiversity Strategy Action Plan, or NBSAPs, including issues like national biodiversity targets, monitoring systems, policy coherence, and also biodiversity finance to ensure that all is aligned with the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Framework. But the project also offers technical capacity. We have a lot of capacity offerings that we're providing to countries. This include peer-to-peer learning and knowledge exchange, self-paced online courses that the parties can take to enhance their knowledge relevant to the implementation and review of their NBSAPs. There's also a massive open online courses that are available. We have been hosting a series of webinar series events covering different topics that enables parties to exchange ideas and also get knowledge and information that they need and is relevant for the review of their NBSAPs. We're also providing guidance and toolkits, as well as workshops and training that is targeted to offer support to these countries. So these resources actually that we're providing in terms of what I've said in terms of both workshops, be it webinar series, be it online courses, they are helping countries to assess the alignment between their national biodiversity targets in the GBF and revise or update their national biodiversity targets in line with the GBF. It also helps them to assess the gaps in their monitoring systems and develop monitoring action plans that are good and relevant and aligned to the GBF. Also, it enables them to conduct an in-depth review of the national policies for alignment with the GBF and create action plans for policy alignment. And lastly, but not the least, to undertake biodiversity finance activities to enable the implementation of NBSAPs. Beyond that, also have an online NBSAP forum, which is an online community of practice that facilitates capacity development opportunities for countries. So the forum provides an opportunity for countries to access resources and expertise through exchange with technical partners. And by having that platform, you're able to identify their needs, and then the needs can be also matched to the technical support available to improve the NBSAPs. The project is designed in a way that it is flexible. so that it can respond to individual needs of the country. You already say that countries are not at the same stage. Others are more advanced, others are following behind. But the purpose of this project is to provide customized services responding to the needs of the countries. So we have few services that we provide. We have a virtual help desk, which is available for countries to access throughout the duration of the project. And this is also available person during the global forums. For example, in the upcoming NBSAPs, we are going to conduct a virtual help desk whereby you can support parties to respond to their questions, to their needs, to enable them to implement the project. We're also providing technical support that is requested by countries. And this is provided on need basis, is not across the board. And then the technical unit is available, whereby they can provide support to countries in terms of whatever they need, should be to work planning, should it be budgeting or organizing session meetings, consultative meetings. The technical support unit is available to provide service. And last but not the least, before I finish my intervention, I'd like to mention that both ourselves, UNEP, UNDP, and CBD, we are closely working together in other complementary initiatives to support countries to access available resources and assistance. For example, the NBSAPS Accelerator Partnership. This is a new initiative that aims to provide tailored services to enable countries to access available technical and financial resources to either review and or accelerate the implementation of the GBF-aligned NBSAPs, but also to elevate national ambition for NBSAPs and nature-positive action following the whole societal government approach. At the end of the day, what we want to achieve is to ensure that nature is placed at the center of development and development plans of the countries. I'll stop there for now.
Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, and thank you for showing how different agencies are coming together to work on this project, and also the ties with other projects to give this visibility to NBSAP, both on the political side and the technical side. That is key, and I think very much appreciated from the countries that receive the support. Which I'm gonna actually turn over to you, Alonso, as a country, representing a country. Alonso, you're the BioFin coordinator in Mexico. Thanks for being with us today. It's great to hear implementing agencies and the CBD. It's just as important to hear the perspective of the countries. And so we're interested in having Mexico's point of view on this project. I understand that your country is working very much so on the finance framework. The finance framework is something we've had a lot of feedback on. As it is important to have a strategy, but if there is no finance framework and finance plan associated to it, it's really hard to sustain over time. So can you tell me a bit more why this is important for Mexico and the type of activities that you are taking and implementing, especially under this EAS project?
Yes, thanks so much for the invitation. Why it is important is because finance and means of implementation is a cross-sectoral topic here in Mexico. The process of redesigning our NBSAP has recognized since the beginning the importance of finance and means of implementation for mobilizing resources from all sources. So what are we doing right now is, as you might know, Mexico is already a part of BioFin since 2015, and we have advanced a lot in our BioFin methodology here. So we already have a lot of information related to biodiversity expenditure review. We did a first analysis on financial needs assessment, and this year we also finished the first analysis on subsidies reform. But we need to update, of course, all this information related to the new process of the NBSAP. So currently, the Biodiversity Commission, CONABIO, is redefining or realigning the national objectives and goals for the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Framework. And after that, when we have the new redesign goals and objectives for Mexico, then we need to also start working in a financial needs assessment for those new goals. So even if Mexico is already advanced due to having biofilm since 2015, I would say to other countries that related, for example, biodiversity expenditure review, there are a lot of existing methodologies. There's a network of countries that have advanced on this topic, and you can make the most of these networks, right? And these methodologies. The same happens for the financial needs assessment and the subsidies reform. There are countries, I guess, in your region that have already advanced in making this analysis, where you can have this kind of cross-pollination of information, of methodologies, and of lessons learned to build your own financial biodiversity finance plan. And well, I think the approach and some recommendations from the Mexican case that I could give to those starting this project is always remember that finance is a cross-sectoral approach. You need to make the most of other sectors that have an impact, either positive or potentially negative on biodiversity, and you have to integrate them in the biodiversity finance plan from the beginning, right? So it is super important to have the agricultural ministries, the finance ministry, even those in charge of economic activities, maybe planning, etc. And you have to also build a common language with them for all to understand why this is important in terms of environment, but also in social and economic aspects, right? So I think, I mean, I will leave it at here at this moment, but always remember that this is a cross-sectoral approach. And if we don't integrate these other actors into the construction of the biodiversity finance plan, then I mean, the impact will be halted eventually, right?
Fully agree, and thanks for integrating this dimension of the whole of government, the whole of society approach also in this perspective of finance. One of the strengths of this project seems also to be the opportunity to learn from other countries. So not all of the JEP eligible parties are working on the same components, and we are trying to enable this communication and peer-to-peer exchange. This is actually maybe the purpose of one of the tool, the NBSAP forum that we have. Deborah, you mentioned that. The NBSAP forum is a repository of information around, NBSAPs and this framework. And there is a section specifically for the EIS project where we really encourage the teams, the national teams that work on this project, to exchange, ask questions, and then respond to each other to build this this community of practice, if we can say, around the EIS project. Thank you so much, Alonso, for sharing that perspective of a country working in this project and having done a lot of work already on the finance frameworks. I'm sure it will inspire more than one colleague. So with this, we are arriving at the end of this conversation. Again, if you want more information around this project, feel free to reach out to this team or go to www.nbsapforum.net, where you will find the resources for this project. I would like to warmly thank you, Christina, Jillian, Deborah, and Alonso, for your time and sharing your expertise in this project today, but also for all your time and dedication to it in the past year and in upcoming years to come. I'd like to thank also the organizing team of the Nature for Life Hub for offering us this space to discuss the Early Action Project support project. And to all of our viewers and participants, thank you for your attention, and I wish everyone a good rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at the Nature for Life Hub. Today, I'm here to speak with you about AI for biodiversity policy advancement. We will be exploring some of the potential applications of artificial intelligence for biodiversity policy analysis and action. So why focus on biodiversity? Well, our planet's rich ecosystems sustain a plethora of unique species and provide the foundation for human health and well-being. From the clean air we breathe to the food we harvest, nature offers resources that sustain the lives of the 8 billion people inhabiting Earth. It's estimated that nature underpins half of the global economy, and it is essential to achieving at least half of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. However, our continued overuse and mismanagement of the Earth's resources for short-term gains is having long-term effects on our planetary safety net. Biodiversity loss is making it harder for communities to secure adequate food and water, to sustain their livelihoods, protect themselves from natural disasters, and to ensure the well-being for future generations. To address biodiversity loss, 193 countries have agreed to the Convention on Biological Diversity, also known as the CBD. This is an international agreement aimed at conserving nature, using its resources sustainably, and fairly sharing the benefits of genetic resources. Despite our best efforts, though, action to safeguard nature is still falling short. In 2020, the CBD Secretariat reported that none of the world's Aichi biodiversity targets were met. This was due in part to various challenges, including a lack of alignment between global and national targets, noting that fewer than a quarter of countries' national targets were aligned with the global Aichi biodiversity targets. Other challenges included a lack of coordination and engagement and buy-in from key stakeholders and nature-impacting sectors, and finally, a lack of financing for target alignment and implementation. The CBD Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework was signed in December of 2022. It is a crucial milestone in our collective effort to address the pressing issue of biodiversity loss. The framework sets out an ambitious plan that features 4 goals and 23 targets, representing the most ambitious global agreement on biodiversity yet. The framework aims to halt and reverse biodiversity loss by 2030, thereby preserving and protecting nature and its essential services to people. The adoption of the framework is an important first step for us on a pathway towards harmony with nature. National biodiversity strategies and action plans, also known as NBSAPs, are the main policy instrument for implementing the Biodiversity Convention at the national level. To achieve the objectives of this framework, the ambition of the global goals and targets need to be reflected in national level policies and planning, including the NBSAPs. The framework provides many important opportunities for this. These include assessing alignment between national biodiversity targets and the global biodiversity framework targets and goals, asking questions like, are countries' biodiversity targets reflected in the global goals, or is there a gap? Revising or updating national targets in the NBSAPs to align more closely with the vision of the framework, and achieving a whole of government and whole of society approach, recognizing that the success of this framework relies on engaging political will and uniting efforts and cooperation across various government agencies, stakeholders, and sectors. So, how does artificial intelligence relate to the biodiversity crisis and the global biodiversity framework? AI provides a pathway to sift through large amounts of data and to find patterns that can inform inclusive decision-making. What if countries could use AI to jumpstart processes and stakeholder engagement around policy alignment and enhancement? We are exploring how AI can be harnessed to inform a policy tool to help accelerate national-level action for the global biodiversity framework. Utilizing AI enables us to examine a multitude of policy documents, extracting insights at a pace and scale that was once inconceivable. What's more, it can support governments in uncovering patterns and gaps in biodiversity target alignment and support a whole of government, whole of society approach. We are using natural language processing and large language models to provide countries with rapid assessments on similarity between their national targets and the global goals and targets. We have developed pilot applications of a tool called the NBSAP Target Similarity Assessment Tool. This tool is a pivotal development in our ongoing efforts to support national biodiversity policy alignment with the global goals and targets. This tool processes text from a country's national biodiversity targets found in the CBD database and computes similarity scores between national biodiversity target text and the global goals and target text. By doing so, it allows us to benchmark national action against international standards, ensuring that we're on the right track to safeguard our planet's biodiversity. To share a bit about how we are using AI, we developed the tool initially using a BERT language model, which employs cosine similarity to assess policy text likeness by considering synonyms and context. BERT may sound familiar, it's the same technology used in Google search engine. As you can see in this graphic, our BERT model evaluates keywords in each of the Global Biodiversity Framework goals or target to identify similarities in the text with national targets. It then provides a percentage-based similarity score categorized as higher, medium, or lower similarity. In these examples, you can see how we have a global target on the left-hand side and 3 national biodiversity targets in the middle. On the right side, you can see the output of the model. The gray highlights show where the common words are between national biodiversity targets and the global target 7. We are also exploring the use of OpenAI's large language model, GPT 3.5, to analyze the similarities and differences between national and global targets and to generate recommendations for national target improvement. You might be familiar with GPT 3.5 because of OpenAI's chatbot, ChatGPT. You can picture it as a kind of digital telescope, capable of swiftly navigating the complex constellation of details within policy text. It goes beyond merely magnifying, it provides deep insights and clarity in a matter of seconds. What truly sets GPT 3.5 apart is its understanding of human language. It doesn't just identify keywords, it actually comprehends the context, nuances, and intricacies of the text. We asked GPT 3.5 to identify where the national and global targets were similar, where they were not similar, and most importantly, to provide recommendations on how to enhance national target similarity with the global goals and targets. As you can see in this example, GPT 3.5 assigns the same high, medium, and low categories of similarity, but it can also provide additional information with recommendations for how to enhance national target similarity with the global goals and targets. For example, for National Target 2, it tells us that there is a medium similarity as both mention pesticides. The National Biodiversity Target, or NBT, could increase similarity through including action to reduce pollution risks and negative impacts from all sources. This type of model can allow us to conduct a more impactful analysis of similarity between national and global targets. It's not just data. It provides valuable insights that can drive informed decision-making and help us to implement policies more effectively. While recognizing the vast potential of this tool, we want to highlight what the tool cannot do. One is providing definitive scoring of target alignment, or taking into account national circumstances, baselines, and capacities. The tool cannot make judgments for a country about where national biodiversity targets should be revised or updated. And it cannot replace the critical national processes around national biodiversity target alignment or qualifying CBD decisions. What the tool can do is provide results that support governments in uncovering patterns and gaps in biodiversity target alignment at the national level. It can stimulate rich conversation among diverse stakeholders, supporting a whole-of-society approach and leading to more dynamic and effective engagement. It can enable stakeholders to engage and convene around a more neutral starting point, providing opportunity for less biased policymaking. And finally, it can expedite processes so that resources can be diverted to stakeholder engagement, NBSAP implementation, and other important processes. The outcome from this tool is a summary for countries of the similarities and gaps between their biodiversity targets and the global biodiversity targets. We are also looking at conducting a global analysis to examine trends across national biodiversity targets and target similarity. Natural language processing and large language models aren't just tools. They can be partners in navigating the complex challenges of biodiversity, climate change, and sustainable development. These technologies enable real-time policy analysis and decision support, providing a critical advantage. Our goal is to offer specific recommendations for policy enhancement and to engage stakeholders with a whole-of-government and whole-of-society approach. Utilizing AI tools such as this can offer practical guidance for enhancing the similarities between national and global targets, leading to smarter and more effective national policies that drive tangible change on the ground and accelerate the achievement of global goals. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the use of AI in advancing biodiversity policy and to be a part of the Nature for Life Hub.
is needed to ensure the full realization of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework? First, it is essential to promote gender equality and women, girls, and diversity's empowerment and ensure that all members of society can fully participate in decision-making processes and benefit equally from development and conservation efforts. Second, we need to facilitate and strengthen gender-responsive financing, and all this can only be done with the participation of the whole society.
When you say house planet, house people, from my perspective, this is where youth and women and men, they are all involved, from the drafting process to the reporting process. From drafting of the policies to the implementation, to the monitoring and evaluation, and to reporting. There should be inclusion because women and youth are key stakeholders. They are not beneficiaries. So if they are included in every step of everything that is being done, not left out to be the laborers or the implementers, to utilize the resources equally. For example, in the work that we do at Faraja Rwanda, we create dialogues before we could start implementing the project. This is where we bring representatives from the government and community leaders from youth and women-led initiatives in our organization for them to speak about and contribute to the project that will be implemented in the near future or in near months, so that they can give their views. And then we base on their views and their ideas and how they want things to be done. There is a saying that the youth say that we normally put out saying, anything for us without us is against us. Meaning that for us to have a healthy planet and healthy people is where there is inclusion. And when we say inclusion, it shouldn't remain in the talks that we talk. It should go into the ground. It should involve everyone. It should not be one-sided or remain in papers, but go in the walk. Like we walk the walk, we walk the talk that we've been saying. So that is what I can call health planet and health people, where everyone is involved from the start to the end, where resources are utilized equally, where gender responsiveness is in everything that we do and is included in everything that we are implementing on the ground. So to end with this statement, I would say we are not inheriting the earth from our ancestors, but we are borrowing it from our children, meaning we have to give it back, and we have to give it back when it is healthy for them to live on a healthy planet. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Elizabeth Nsimadala. I'm the president of the Eastern Africa Farmers Federation and also the director in charge of women affairs at the Pan-Africa Farmers Organization. And originally, I'm from Uganda and a smallholder farmer. Of course, being a farmer, I interact with nature on a day-to-day basis, and of course, and plus other millions of smallholder farmers who are stewards of nature. And our core mandate as farmers is to make sure that everyone has food. And our production of this food should be sustainable. In other words, we should be producing in a way that is going to keep our soils and our planet healthy for the next generation. So meaning, from our perspective as farmers, a health planet it's a way we interact with nature on a day-to-day basis, making sure that we are in harmony with nature. Whatever actions that we do when we are producing the food, let's say either with the soil, either with the water, for example, for fisheries, either with the forestry, and mention any value chain when it comes to food production. It should be in harmony with nature, and it should be towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So we as women, of course, we know more than 50% of the women are involved in the agriculture sector and in food production. So we really need to be supported And this support is in very many ways. Of course, it starts with information, getting the right information, and getting capacitated with how to transfer that information to the next generation, but also how to implement it on the ground. Then the second area is on resources. Resources both in terms of human resources, but also the financial resources. We all know that most of the women farmers don't have access to the factors of production. For example, access to land, access to capital, access, to mention any means of production. It is always disadvantageous for a woman to have access to such resources. So we would need to see that process of access being, facilitated as smooth as possible, so that we don't have to struggle so hard. Because, as women, because of our other roles, we've been struggling so hard. So we would want to see a dedicated, for example, fund specifically targeting women. Then, of course, the other final issue is on partnerships. We can't do this alone. We'd want to see how we can create an ecosystem of different actors, different players, coming together on the same table so that we can all bring our comparative advantage and create mutual partnerships where everyone benefits from this kind of partnerships. By so doing, then we are able to share information, we are able to share resources, we are able to leverage on the available limited resources, because resources can never be enough. But we believe that everyone has at least what they can bring on the table. And so I believe if we do that, then we are able to protect and preserve our health, of course, as beings, as human beings, and also the nature, and also have a health planet.
And I want to highlight a bit on the global biodiversity framework and how my country should indulge women in some decision making as far as protecting our biodiversity is concerned. In our own local areas, mostly, let's say from the region, the country I come from, most decisions, they always consider the women as a secondary matter. They don't actually put our thoughts into first decisions making. But then issues relating to the environment, as far as our biodiversity is concerned, I think women should be given a higher priority in it, because irrespective of the fact that men are highly in decision making, does not make for the fact that women should not be taken into consideration whenever decisions about protecting our environment is concerned. Because men till the land, as well as women also till the land. So whatever decision is being taken concerned to our environment, women should also be prioritized in. And then again, I will urge that whatever decision or governmental decision or in the high level decision being taken, women should be involved in it. This is because the women has higher value in impacting young ladies and the young people in society. Yeah, men does, but women have higher and then upper hand on those areas. So when women are being involved in it, definitely they will sensitize the youth in our communities in all aspects of areas, so that the knowledge will be spread as fast as possible, and we all get to know how to protect it and the way forward to reserve our ecosystems and all that will help us live long.
What I have been done for about 20 years, we've been working on in different issues and in different conventions. Why in different conventions? Because during the convention and negotiation, what we are trying to do around the world is to eliminate certain substances. Yes, for instance, Stockholm Convention or the Minamata Convention. The idea under those conventions is to recognize there are certain substances that they must be eliminated because they are harming, they cause harm in people's body, and the environment. Yes, and if we really want to live in a clean environment, we have to get to know what is causing the damage. From my experience, all those years is that it takes too long to get to consensus to eliminate certain substances. For instance, just an example of that, the Stockholm Convention, it was ratified. It came to, it started on the year 2004. And if you think it's 2 decades, and we are still using substances that are persistent organic pollutants. And those substances, it means that they're going to stay forever in our environment. And only this year, after nearly 2 decades, they were listed other 3 new substances that two of them, they are being used in plastic. And when I say list them under that convention, it doesn't mean that they are going to be eliminated right now. Yes? The only thing that all the countries, the convention decided that those substances, they are persistent organic pollutants. But it will take years to decide, okay, we stopped using them. And then, as I said it before, those substances, they are in the environment. So if we really want to have a healthy planet, we have to work. And we have, I don't mean just work. I think take decisions. Those decisions, they have to be taken with all the actors. But the main ones are the producers. And we have to know what is in those substances, the toxic chemical. We have to know what is in there, and not to and take more into consideration the scientists, because there is a group of scientists especially in the Stockholm Convention, that many times they have said, look, those substances are dangerous, and it takes again years and years to recognize that those substances are persistent organic pollutants. And the other thing that they have done, especially with some pesticides, they get rid of, they eliminate some of them or one of them, and the alternative they give is the same. It has the same characteristic. Yeah, they are persistent organic pollutants. And what happened? We have to decide. We have to think. We should think a little bit more on what we are doing to the planet. And we do not have much time. I mean, everybody said the same. We don't have much time, but we have to act. And acting, to me, is take the right decision. And there is one thing that I really summarize everything. Nature doesn't need us. Nature will continue there. Maybe we can destroy it as we've been destroying now, but we are destroying ourselves. Yes? And if we do not take actions quickly, we are going to end up with a lot of pollution, as we are worse than as we have it now. So that's my main message to this. Act, not just to talk and talk. It's been too many conventions, too many meetings in the convention, and takes so long to take decisions. We don't have time.
Hello, and welcome to this dialogue on the recently launched IPBES assessment on invasive alien species and their control. My name is Pimo Komutso. I am with UNDP's Nature Hub. During this session, we'll look at the importance of bridging knowledge and action for biodiversity conservation. First, I'd like to introduce our guest speakers. We have Ms. Francine Pickup, who's the Deputy Director of UNDP's Bureau for Policy and Program Support. And we have Dr. Anne Larigoderi from IPBES. She's the Executive Secretary. IPBES is the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, and they will both provide us with keynote remarks. We'll then have a dialogue session with Professor Helen Roy, who co-chaired the thematic assessment on invasive alien species. She's based at the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. We'll also have Dr. Ilgin Akpinar from the General Directorate of Nature Conservation and National Parks at the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry in Turkey. We will conclude our dialogue with remarks by Midori Paxton, the Director of Nature Hub at UNDP. So without much ado, I'll pass the virtual microphone over to Francine to get us started. Welcome and enjoy. Thank you.
Greetings to our esteemed speakers, partners and colleagues tuning in from around the globe. We are at a critical juncture where the delicate balance of nature is increasingly under threat, largely due to human activity. Invasive alien species introduced by humans intentionally or accidentally are one of the main drivers of biodiversity loss, disrupting ecosystems and affecting economies, food security, and health globally. The call for transformative evidence-based solutions is clear and is urgent. IPBES is our invaluable ally in this journey. Its role in strengthening the knowledge foundation and fostering evidence-informed policymaking is pivotal in guiding UNDP's Nature Pledge implementation in support of governments and national stakeholders. The recently launched assessment on invasive alien species provides renewed impetus for efforts ongoing at the national level. Our discussion today underscores the profound connection between informed actions and the global biodiversity framework. Scientific, indigenous, and local knowledge all serve as essential drivers to catalyze creative decisions and innovative actions that help mitigate the threats of invasive alien species, restore the resilience and health of our ecosystems, and attain the ambitious 2030 targets of the SDGs. As we dive into the dialogue, let's remember that our collective wisdom, our unity, and our commitment are key to safeguarding our planet's biodiversity and ensuring a harmonious coexistence with nature for generations to come.
Thanks very much, Francine. Indeed, we cannot understate the importance of collaborative, evidence-backed approaches in addressing the challenges posed by invasive alien species. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Anne Larigoderi, the Executive Secretary of IPBES, to give her own remarks. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your kind words to IPBES and for hosting this dialogue today, which is dedicated to the important topic of invasive alien species. But before we get into that, I'll just say a few quick words about IPBES itself. So, as most of you will know, IPBES was founded about 10 years ago. It is an independent intergovernmental mechanism which currently counts 144 governments as its members. And in terms of overall objective, the objective of IPBES is to provide policymakers with credible scientific assessments about the state of knowledge regarding the planet's biodiversity and the many contributions it provides to people, as well as to provide tools and methods to protect and sustainably use these vital assets. IPBES is currently implementing what we call the rolling work program up to 2030. And currently, we are working on the preparation of 3 assessments. The Nexus assessment, which looks at synergies and trade-offs between reaching the Sustainable Development Goals related to food, water, health, biodiversity and climate change/energy. Second topic is transformative change. And the third topic is business and biodiversity. That one focuses on methods, and its goals is to accompany the efforts of the private sector towards decreasing its impact and better monitoring and understanding its dependency towards nature. So the invasive alien species assessment was the last report in the first work program of IPBES, which saw the production of 10 reports, so 11 total with the invasive alien species assessment, including in 2019 the IPBES Global Assessment of Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, the first global assessment of IPBES and its landmark reports. So in terms of impact, the work of IPBES, of course, is now informing many new pieces of legislations around the world, many initiatives by governments, by the private sector, such as the World Economic Forum, for example, or civil society. And IPBES has importantly and recently been providing the scientific basis for the global biodiversity framework, recently approved by COP15, with the important connection between the framework in particular and the conceptual framework of IPBES, the nature contributions to people, the 5 direct drivers, the indirect drivers, and also some of the targets directly taken and drawn from the work of IPBES, such as, for example, the target on the many values of biodiversity. So just a couple of words on the invasive alien species assessment itself before the co-chairs actually start presenting the findings of this assessment. So why a report on this topic? Well, one of the key conclusions of the global assessment that came out in 2019 was that invasive alien species are one of the 5 direct causes of biodiversity loss. There was a large body of scientific evidence on this issue, showing the negative impact of invasive alien species, in particular on our economies, but on many other contributions as well. And until now, there had not been a critical global synthesis on that topic. That is why the 140 plus governments who are members of IPBES asked IPBES to assess knowledge on this topic. So how was this report prepared? Well, the report was produced according to the IPBES rules of procedure, which in particular warrant quality and transparency regarding the selection of authors, the geographical balance, the peer review of drafts, the approval of the reports, etc. It was prepared by a group of about 90 scientists, natural scientists, social scientists, who were themselves supported by 200 contributing authors from all regions of the world. Together, they analyzed over 13,000 scientific references, 13,000 scientific, as well as indigenous and local knowledge. Since, as you well know, IPBES has an approach to working with indigenous and local knowledge systems. The assessment has a summary for policymakers, which was approved word by word at the IPBES 10 plenary, which just took place in August-September in Bonn 2023, as well as 6 chapters which were accepted by this plenary. So this is to really provide some context for the presentations that are going to be made now, including by the co-chairs of the invasive alien species assessment on the key findings of that assessment. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for those insights, Dr. Larry Godery, and for shedding light on the pivotal role of IBES in informing action on biodiversity conservation. Now we'll transition into our dialogue session with Professor Helen Roy and Dr. Ilgin Akpinar. We'll first do a deep dive into the IBES invasive species assessment itself and discuss some of the key findings and actionable evidence that it has generated. I'll turn to you first. Professor Roy, could you please highlight some of the key findings from this assessment? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. There are many key findings from our report that really do add considerable insights on the problem of invasive alien species, and particularly their threats to biodiversity and ecosystems, but also the threat that they pose to good quality of life and nature's contributions to people. And I just thought it might be useful to highlight with a few slides the extent of the problem. So we know that there have been 37,000 established alien species introduced by human activities worldwide. And we know that this is growing annually by about 200 new alien species every year. And of all of those, we have evidence of documented impacts for about 3,500 of those alien species, which are therefore considered to be invasive alien species. And they have negative impacts on nature, but also on people. And it's also important to note the number of invasive alien species have been found on the lands of indigenous peoples across all regions of Earth. And that's about 2,300. And you can see from this infographic that there are some cases, some of the invasive alien species are just impacting one kind of category. For example, the chytrid fungus having a profound effect on nature in terms of causing extinctions of amphibians globally. But there are many cases where these invasive alien species are impacting nature and good quality of life and nature's contributions to people. And I think that one of the other key findings from our report, so not only is it the fact that invasive alien species are a major and growing threat to nature and to people, but also that current policies so far have been insufficient in managing biological invasions and preventing and controlling invasive alien species. And we noted that although many countries have targets for the management of biological invasions within national biodiversity strategies and action plans, about 83% of countries do not have national legislation or regulations directed specifically towards prevention and control of invasive alien species. And half of the countries, or about half, 45%, do not invest in the management of invasive alien species. And I think what's really also important to consider is that this growing threat of invasive alien species is going to be exacerbated by the interactions with other drivers of biodiversity change. So the interactions with climate change and land and sea use change, for example. And we only have to think back to the really terrible fires that we saw in Hawaii to see the ways in which that can play out, with the alien grasses really being the fuel to those fires, which were being also driven by climate change.
Thank you, Professor Roy, for sharing those statistics and figures. They show the extent of the problem that we're dealing with. And thank you also for reminding us that the issue is actually quite complex, and it's exacerbated by interactions that are driving biodiversity change and loss globally. Now, turning to you, Dr. Akpinar, could you please share with us how the issue of invasive alien species is dealt with and recognized in your country, Turkey, where I happen to live? What kind of initiatives have been undertaken by the government to counteract this problem? And how do these initiatives reflect Turkey's own commitment to biodiversity conservation?
Thank you for the questions. Invasive alien species are considered one of the leading causes of the biodiversity loss in our country as in the world. Through their multiple impacts, they threaten native species, natural habitats, and ecosystem services, but also economic activities and human health. And it has been determined by many scientific research and monitoring studies conducted in our country. In Turkey, Examples of the invasions are numerous. Pufferfish and lionfish in Mediterranean Sea, North Atlantic starfish in Marmara Sea, water hyacinth in Mediterranean region, red-eared sea lider in Mediterranean region, and Aegean regions. In Turkey, there are approximately 900 species in the studies report prepared within the scope of the IPA2 projects. 10 years before these studies, our country started recognitions and awareness activities regarding invasive alien species. The existence of these species has been primarily proven by conducting short-term inventory studies in our protected areas by national resources. Since the rate of the emergence of the new species is increasing for all biological groups, larger comprehensive studies are so required. It was decided to benefit from both national and international resources for these studies, and project applications were made to global environmental facilities and European Union authorities. These projects were started in the IPA2 period. The name of the project, Addressing of Invasive Alien Species Threats in Terrestrial and Inland Waters in Turkey, and the GEF6 period project name, Addressing Invasive Alien Species Threats at Key Marine Biodiversity Areas. In addition, harvest indicator programs and support policies are carried out by different general directorates in our country. Across the country, many actors are mobilizing to organize surveillance, assess impacts, improve knowledge, define strategies, and implement prevention and management actions in the field. In parallel, public policies are developed at national and international level to try to respond to this phenomenon. Thank you for the listening.
Thank you, Dr. Akpina, for outlining the nature of this challenge in Turkey and the actions your government is taking together with other partners to address this pressing challenge. Now, let's shift our focus a bit to look at how evidence can drive policy change and inform action on the ground. Professor Roy, starting with you, considering the threats invasive alien species pose to nature, people, and their livelihoods, and to economies, how can we expedite the translation of scientific evidence into actionable, effective policies, ensuring that there is a balance between ecological integrity on one hand and economic development on the other? Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. It's been an incredible privilege to work with the amazing team of experts to deliver this assessment, and we have compiled a huge amount of evidence to present the problem and outline the problem of invasive alien species, but also to give lots of information around the solutions. And we have really been solution focused throughout the assessment. And when I'm thinking about the ways in which this information can be put to best use, it is really important that it is effectively communicated to people. And we've produced a number of fact sheets that we hope will help in that regard. But I think also within the detail of both the summary for policymakers, but also throughout the assessment, we do provide very detailed guidance as to potential options for delivering action. And one of the aspects where we brought together considerations of the ways in which the evidence that we have synthesized could be used is through the strategic actions to achieve integrated governance of biological invasions. And here on this tree that you can see, it's one of the graphics that we present in the summary for policymakers. And we sort of show within the roots the properties of governance systems: robust institutions, responsive governance, effective implementation, equitable and inclusive governance. But also we provide at the top some clear actions that could be implemented to achieve integrated governance. So enhanced coordination and collaboration across international and regional mechanisms, developing and adopting effective and achievable national implementation strategies, sharing effort and commitment, and understanding the roles of everyone who's involved, improving policy coherence, engaging broadly across stakeholders, Indigenous peoples and local communities, having sufficient resources and innovations and research and technology, and supporting information systems, infrastructures, and data sharing. And I think that all of these actions kind of go in hand with very strong communication strategies to be able to ensure that we can deliver achievable action and ambitious progress in managing biological invasions, while still, of course, supporting initiatives that are so important within global trade, for example. And we really feel that this assessment could be extremely helpful in helping governments to underpin and document the progress made towards achieving the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework Target 6.
Thank you, Professor Roy and the whole team, for including such clear and detailed recommendations from this assessment, and for providing guidance on possible solutions we can take. This will be crucial for translating knowledge into action. Now back to you, Dr. Akpina. From the perspective of a government, how critical is the role of platforms like IPBES in generating new knowledge and evidence that can inform and guide on-the-ground action? For instance, how is this recent assessment by IPBES influencing or going to influence Turkey's approach to managing invasive alien species, especially in key areas for biodiversity like marine ecosystems? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Since it is the establishment, the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services has been playing a crucial role for United Nations countries in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and Conference of the Parties and the Convention of Biological Diversity, with the evaluation reports containing different themes. In addition, it is seen that the data included in these evaluation reports make a serious contribution to the Aichi targets, and this importance was expressed by our delegates at the different biodiversity conferences in the United Nations. The fact that in the last IPBES assessment was about invasive alien species has once again relieved how serious and important a problem in this issue can become. In our country, ongoing activities related to protection from invasive alien species are carried out in the pilot regions where important marine biological biodiversity is located. The latest evaluations will make a significant contribution to the area-based management plans of invasive alien species to be made in the new period. Due to the importance of this thematic evolution, the report was translated into Turkish and distributed private and public institutions and organizations related to the invasive alien species. Thank you for the listening.
Thank you, Dr. Akpina. It is encouraging to hear how Turkey is leveraging this critical knowledge that IPBES is providing. It's a reminder for all of us of the importance of evidence-based policymaking and collaborative action, including at the global level. Now, as we approach the end of this insightful dialogue, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our distinguished speakers for sharing their invaluable knowledge and expertise with us today. And before we conclude, it's my honor to introduce my colleague, the custodian of UNDP's Nature Pledge, the person that's currently leading UNDP's efforts to protect biodiversity and ecosystems. Please join me in welcoming Midori Paxton, the director of the Nature Hub at UNDP. Midori, over to you. The floor is yours. Thank you, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear partners and colleagues, I would like to extend my gratitude to our speakers for their time and valuable insights shared today. Our dialogue emphasized the urgent need to bridge knowledge and action to minimize and mitigate the negative impacts of invasive alien species on biodiversity, as called for by the Global Biodiversity Framework, particularly Target 6. Our speakers highlighted the importance of evidence-based solutions and the crucial role of IPBES in guiding us in these efforts. As we conclude, let's carry forward the knowledge and inspiration gained today. Our collective wisdom and unity are vital in safeguarding the planet's biodiversity. We should aim to foster collaboration, leverage diverse knowledge systems, and drive innovative actions to protect our planet. The road ahead may be challenging, but it is a journey we must take for ourselves and for future generations. Thank you so much for your dedication to nature. I look forward to our continued collaboration in protecting nature and its essential values to humanity. Thank you.
Welcome back. In this segment, we'll look at some of the policies needed to help promote action for nature at local, national, and regional scales. We'll also hear about policies that promote connectivity, biodiversity mainstreaming, urban nature-based solutions, agroecology, and much more. We'll also explore some of the barriers to putting effective policies in place. So let's get started.
I'm Rob Campbell, Consulting Director with Wildlife Habitat Council, a Washington, D.C. area-based environmental nonprofit that has been working with businesses for 35 years to help them connect the dots to improve biodiversity outcomes on working lands around the globe. Each company we've worked with over the years has come to us at different points along their biodiversity journey, but they have all expressed a willingness to find a path forward that will result in more sustainable operations for their employees, the communities in which they operate, and the lands they utilize. Now more than ever, there is a call for industry to rightfully support a nature-positive future to help halt or even reverse the deleterious effects their collective operations have had on nature over the last century. With a multitude of environmental, social, and governance or ESG standards and disclosures now in place, and with future regulation likely to follow, companies have the opportunity to put sustainability at the heart of their decision-making process and take strategic action to maximize outcomes for nature and the human community that depends on it. While the ESG landscape comes into better definition and support and decision-making tools are further refined, forward-thinking companies have already proven that it is more than possible for business to take meaningful action now by adopting corporate-level biodiversity strategies and connecting them with site-level action. Moving into what may feel like uncharted territory, many companies may find themselves hesitant to fully engage this aspect of sustainability for fear of financial or time commitments, or simply for fear of taking a misstep. But the truth is, a company's approach to nature or biodiversity is not a one-time deal, but rather an iterative process that accounts for new information and feedback along the way. And, like most journeys, taking the first step for some can be the most difficult. While some companies remain relatively inactive in regards to addressing their impacts on nature, others are blazing a trail forward and are mainstreaming biodiversity across their company, and in some cases across their sector and even supply chain. These companies understand they don't have to have all the answers, but they are effectively utilizing the informational resources and partnerships available to them to navigate what is for many a newly identified materiality, as they are using lessons learned to better define their unique contribution to collectively set goals. In a moment, we'll hear from two of WHC's committed corporate partners who have implemented a strategic approach to biodiversity across much of their operational footprint and continue to expand their biodiversity uplift efforts. We'll hear from CRH, an Irish-based global leader in providing building material solutions operating at over 3,000 locations in nearly 30 countries. CRH is seen in the area they operate as an essential partner for road and critical utility infrastructure, commercial building projects, and outdoor living solutions. We'll also hear from Solvay, a Belgian-based global leader in materials, chemicals, and solutions that seek to bring advancements in planes, cars, batteries, smart and medical devices, and water and air treatment to solve critical industrial, social, and environmental challenges. While CRH and Solvay have created different approaches to fulfill their unique commitments to and dependencies on nature, they both have centered their approach on a fundamental commitment to the people and places they serve, and have sought support from partners like WHC to help develop a sensible path forward. Thank you.
CRH's membership with Wildlife Habitat Council provides education and collaboration opportunities for biodiversity projects. Our project managers use wildlife habitat as a resource for problem solving and ideas to improve. It also allows us to benchmark our projects with similar programs across all types of industry. At CRH, we recognize how our biodiversity and ecological enhancement projects contribute to global efforts to address climate change and biodiversity loss. Thriving ecosystems are an essential part of a healthy natural world. Extractive activities can transform land into important habitats for all wildlife. We include specific habitat features that complement adjacent lands into the design of our reclamation projects to create nesting areas, establish food sources, migration rest areas, and overwintering spaces. Every location provides a unique opportunity to enhance habitats and construct new ones.
The global decline in monarch butterfly populations is well documented, and in Canada, the monarch butterfly is listed as special concern. For the past several years, CRH has been planting milkweed in the spring and fall at several locations as part of our ecological enhancement program. The milkweed plant is the only food source for monarch larvae and caterpillars. CRH has a seed collection program to utilize local native seed sources as part of our conservation efforts. As part of the seed collection program, each fall, CRH staff gather some milkweed seed from our sites to spread in new designated planting locations. Spring milkweed planting involves local school children or sports teams planting milkweed that were grown at a nursery from the seed collected the previous fall. We continue to monitor the areas we have planted for both survival and evidence of monarch butterflies and caterpillars.
In recent years, CRH has focused on including habitats for species at risk. Wetlands for amphibians, grasslands for ground nesting birds, structures for barn swallows and bat roosting, as well as nesting areas for turtles are some of the habitats that we've been constructing. One of our Wildlife Habitat Council certified sites includes wetlands constructed specifically for Jefferson salamanders. Jefferson salamanders are classified as endangered in Ontario, Canada. CRH operates 2 quarries on the Niagara Escarpment near Jefferson salamander habitat. We set out to prove that we can design and construct wetlands that Jefferson salamanders would use for breeding. Excavators and dozers constructed the depression for the wetland. Stumps, root wads, and rocks from other areas of the site that were being prepared for extraction were placed in the wetland footprint, and branches were added as structures for the amphibians to attach their egg masses. In the spring of 2020, Jefferson salamanders were confirmed breeding in the wetland. Monitoring continues and has also allowed us to document evolution of the new wetlands and make improvements on details needed for greater success.
My name is Michelle Ingeman, and I'm part of Solvay's corporate sustainable development team. Under the umbrella we call Business Solutions. Maybe a little bit about Solvay. We're a science company founded in 1863 with approximately 22,000 employees. We have 99 industrial sites, and you'll find us in 61 countries. Our technologies bring benefits to things that we use and depend on in our everyday life. Our solutions contribute to safer, cleaner, healthier, and more sustainable products that can be found in your home, in the transportation that you take, whether it's planes or cars, in food and consumer goods. You'll find us also in batteries, smart devices, healthcare applications, and water and air purification systems. Our group seeks to create sustainable value for all, notably through our Solvay One Planet plan. This plan is crafted around 3 pillars: protecting the climate, preserving natural resources, and fostering life. Solvay recognizes that everything we do has a dependency on nature, and we believe nature is good for business, and our business can also be good for nature. Now let me share a little bit of context with you about how Solvay is acting locally at our sites and our local communities. We became a member of the Wildlife Habitat Council in 2021 and have collaborated on several projects. One of the most important from my perspective is we co-developed a conservation guide to support the sites in developing their local biodiversity roadmaps. With this, it's allowing us to work to preserve and restore habitats by setting up very specific programs that are linked to some of the key sensitivities at our sites at a local level. Our site in Paulínia, Brazil is a great example of how a chemical industry site can coexist in harmony with nature. Their programs have led to reforestation of native forests, recovery of riverbanks, and activities that have allowed original animal species to once again thrive along the site's corridors in a safe way. As I just mentioned, our sustainability strategy is structured around 3 major pillars: climate, resources, and better life. We call this Solvay One Planet. It's our roadmap towards a sustainable future and our goals of providing shared value for all. As a part of this commitment, we've embedded biodiversity. And with this, we're aiming to reduce our pressure on biodiversity by 2030. Why is this important? Biodiversity is important for our day-to-day lives, but not only. Our business also depends on biodiversity for its activities, and with this, we know we are having an impact. We'll reduce again by 30% our pressures before 2030. Not only in our operations, but we also take into consideration the value chains we serve. How are we doing this? First, we believe understanding our impact is critical to how we act and how we decide what actions we need to take. 1, we perform life cycle assessment of our product, which allows us to estimate our pressure on biodiversity based on environmental impact indicators. We have assessed the biodiversity profile of our sites, identifying key sensitivities, whether it's water use, land use, or our impact locally on species. This allows us to take both a global and local approach, and we work to implement conservation actions that are practical and relevant. At a group level, Solvay is committed to reducing the pressures that we bring to biodiversity on our product portfolio and to the value chains that we serve. But not only, we're committed locally to develop and uplift for nature. So creating an environment so we can all be engaged in acting with partners, customers, and local teams to really make a difference.
I'm Ian Fryer, Site Director of the Solvay Oldbury site in the United Kingdom. Today we're engaged in another one of our biodiversity activities, something we've been involved in now for the last 4 to 5 years. We've planted a lot of different things, number of trees, wildflower seeds, and also in the last couple of years we've just let nature take its course and rewild a number of areas naturally. The benefits are many, obviously for the planet. We need to take better care of the planet we've got. We are custodians for the future. It's not ours to use and abuse. But it's also much better for the people. It's good for the soul to come and be surrounded by plants, trees, colour and some life, particularly on a heavy industry site like we are.
Oceans Practice is putting an ambitious and exciting approach to practice in a global initiative. Over the past 2 decades, WWF and some 280 local partners have supported community-led conservation in 38 countries. Management solutions have been implemented with wide-ranging success, and however as impressive and as significant as the local successes are, they ultimately represent incremental progress. Now we need to act at scale, and we need a whole society approach to build the resilience of coastal communities and of the natural systems that they depend on. WWF is catalyzing a global movement of coastal communities and relevant institutions to accelerate coastal community-led conservation to secure at least 4 million square kilometers of critical coastal ecosystems vital to the food security and livelihoods of millions of vulnerable coastal people. The initiative will scale using an innovative 3-pronged scaling approach. We are scaling out by replicating the most effective community-led conservation solutions. We are scaling up by embedding those solutions in national and regional action plans and policies. And we are scaling deep by promoting the adoption of those solutions through learning and sharing. So how does the initiative come to life on the ground? By connecting sites and people across the globe through multi-layered networks, our virtual and in-person learning hubs, such as the SSF Hub, the Mediterranean Small-Scale Fishers Forum, give global access to training material, exchange ideas, and lessons learned. Almost every site in the initiative has a learning hub. Imagine the power of joining those across the globe. Through partnerships, we believe in the importance of co-designing information and communication technologies to generate and analyze data and knowledge to enhance the management and empower communities. Our partnerships with Agroecology and James Cook University App Systems build accountability and transparency throughout the supply chain, all the while integrating traditional and local knowledge. And lastly, jointly with the Blue Futures Initiative, we are building a pipeline of investable projects and sustainable financing streams for coastal community enterprises. We aim to bridge the investment gap and build an enabling environment to support nature-positive enterprises, and our sophisticated M&E system, built by practitioners for practitioners, enables us to track measurable impact across these projects across the globe. We see immediate impacts and benefits associated with sharing our approaches and experiences, aligning strategies, and coordinating our efforts. We must catalyze a global movement with a people-centered approach where rights holders are an integral part of the global web of multi-layered networks designing those solutions. I thank you.
América Latina es la región en vías de desarrollo más urbanizada del mundo. Su variada geografía ha visto crecer ciudades en lo alto de las montañas, en lo profundo de bosques, junto a áridos desiertos y en las orillas del mar. Hoy, casi 8 de cada 10 personas que viven en la región lo hace en una ciudad. Proveer a esta creciente población de espacios y servicios públicos de calidad, así como controlar el impacto que este crecimiento tiene en la naturaleza, es un gran reto. La especial vulnerabilidad de América Latina ante el cambio climático, así como su gran variedad de climas y geografías, implica que sus ciudades estén expuestas a múltiples riesgos. 3 de los 10 países más afectados por el cambio climático se encuentran en América Latina, y el 48% de sus capitales presentan un riesgo extremo ante ellos. Las ciudades andinas, por ejemplo, se enfrentan al cambio de las lluvias y deslizamientos. Las ciudades del Caribe experimentan huracanes e inundaciones cada vez más frecuentes, mientras las ciudades amazónicas deben sobreponerse a sequías e incendios forestales. Para el 2050, 17 millones de personas en la región podrían verse desplazadas debido a eventos climáticos. Sin embargo, la naturaleza nos ofrece soluciones para reducir estos impactos. Las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza, o SBN por sus siglas, son acciones que protegen, gestionan y restauran ecosistemas para mejorar la vida de las personas. Las SBN requieren de un enfoque de cuenca en la planificación urbana para mirar la ciudad a través de los servicios que proveen los ecosistemas en las zonas urbanas, periurbanas y rurales, y utilizar esa conexión para reducir los impactos climáticos. Estas estrategias nos permiten hacer frente al cambio climático, reducir el riesgo de desastres, preservar ecosistemas, proteger los medios de vida y la salud humana. Los techos verdes son un ejemplo de solución basada en la naturaleza, que regula la temperatura ambiente, purifica el aire y nos ayuda a reducir la necesidad de uso de aire acondicionado. Otras acciones incluyen la siembra de biohuertos para tener mayor seguridad alimentaria y la construcción de sistemas de captación de agua de lluvia para hacer frente a periodos de sequía. Como concepto paraguas, en la SBN se interrelacionan y complementan diversos enfoques, siendo uno de estos la adaptación basada en ecosistemas. Sin embargo, no todas las medidas SBN para aprovechar los servicios ecosistémicos son aplicables a todas las ciudades. Para responder de modo preciso a las necesidades de cada ciudad, el proyecto Nature for Cities aplica soluciones basadas en la naturaleza siguiendo un modelo de 4 pasos. Primero, analizar los riesgos climáticos y vulnerabilidad de la ciudad con un enfoque de paisaje. Segundo, implementar medidas para mitigar dichos riesgos y vulnerabilidades de modo participativo. Tercero, buscar fuentes de financiamiento para la ejecución y ampliación de estas medidas. Y finalmente, monitorear las medidas para asegurar que sean efectivas y brinden lecciones para su réplica o escalamiento. A través del proyecto Nature for Cities en América Latina, este modelo será aplicado en 13 ciudades seleccionadas de 7 países de la región, apuntando a construir resiliencia y aprendizajes para hacer frente al cambio climático. Las soluciones están en la naturaleza. Apostemos por ellas.
Soy María Paula Vizcardo Sesma, analista de soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en zonas urbanas. Trabajo en el equipo de adaptación al cambio climático para la Oficina Regional de América Latina y del Caribe de ONU Medio Ambiente. Hoy voy a estar hablando de la inclusión de las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en los análisis de políticas, que forma parte de un producto de un proyecto regional llamado Nature for Cities, que busca incrementar la resiliencia en ciudades de América Latina y del Caribe a través de las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza. Este es un proyecto financiado por el Green Climate Fund y cofinanciado por Euroclima Plus. Nature for Cities es un proyecto regional que se está desarrollando en 7 países de la región de América Latina y el Caribe y en 13 ciudades. El objetivo del presente video es poder conocer el involucramiento de las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en los marcos normativos y en los análisis de política, y es por eso que con nuestro proyecto se van a generar 13 documentos, uno para cada ciudad. Igualmente es importante destacar que no se van a modificar los marcos normativos existentes, y eso se espera lograr escalando este proyecto y a partir de estos análisis base, identificando las barreras y las oportunidades de involucramiento, poder incorporarlo en un futuro. Sin embargo, este ha sido el caso de la actualización de la segunda NDC de Panamá y el Plan de Reducción de Riesgos de República Dominicana, donde a través de nuestras coordinadoras nacionales del proyecto se ha podido involucrar el enfoque de soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en esta actualización de documentos. Para esto fue necesario generar un estado base de los marcos normativos existentes en cada una de las ciudades. Y es por ello que determinamos el tipo de instrumento político, si era una estrategia, un marco o una directiva. Se mencionaban las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza, es decir, si se nombraba el medio ambiente o más en específico cambio climático o aún mejor adaptación o soluciones basadas en la naturaleza. El objetivo de las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza, dado que no es lo mismo que una solución basada en la naturaleza sea destinada para la salud, para el desarrollo del empleo digno, el desarrollo económico, la diversidad cultural, que para tener este componente de adaptación basada en ecosistemas. Por supuesto que va a ser complementario, pero el objetivo va a delinear los principales beneficios de la medida. También el tipo de intervención, la naturaleza del instrumento, es decir, si es obligatorio o si es voluntario, y el nivel de apoyo a las SBN, si tenían un nivel de apoyo implícito, explícito. A continuación voy a presentar 2 casos de estudio donde se pudo involucrar las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en políticas nacionales. Uno es Uruguay con la Política Nacional de Cambio Climático, la cual fue aprobada en el año 2017 y que tiene su plazo de aplicación al año 2050. Lo que busca, en definitiva, es poder adaptarnos y mitigar el cambio climático. A partir de entonces se generaron planes sectoriales de adaptación para ciudades e infraestructuras, para el sector agropecuario y para las zonas costeras, aunque también se están desarrollando otros planes sectoriales de adaptación. Lo que busca esta política nacional es que las ciudades y los sistemas se conviertan en zonas más resilientes, reduciendo las emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero y conservando los ecosistemas naturales. Y para ello propone medidas de adaptación basadas en ecosistemas, más específicamente soluciones basadas en la naturaleza para conservar ecosistemas fluviales, marinos y costeros, y pudiendo integrar las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en la planificación urbana y también en los instrumentos de ordenamiento territorial y en el paisaje. En el caso de República Dominicana, se integraron las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en la Política Nacional de Adaptación para el Cambio Climático, que tiene su plazo de implementación entre el año 2015 y el año 2030, que busca generar ecosistemas más resilientes. En esta normativa se espera integrar las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en distintos programas y actividades de planificación. Y se mencionan en específico algunas soluciones basadas en la naturaleza, como la restauración de los ecosistemas, así como también el mantenimiento y la gestión de los espacios verdes ya existentes. Si bien a nivel nacional he dado algunos ejemplos del involucramiento de las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en marcos normativos, esta situación no se representa y no se ve identificada tanto a nivel local. Es por eso que en los distintos documentos generados para Uruguay y para República Dominicana se han identificado algunas barreras. La primera tiene que ver con las brechas de conocimiento. Se considera que las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en las 3 ciudades estudiadas, Durazno, Rivera y Santiago de los Caballeros, es un concepto muy nuevo que no está internalizado y que muchas veces hay medidas que son soluciones basadas en la naturaleza pero que no son identificadas como tal. Al mismo tiempo no se tiene consideración de la sinergia y la importancia que tienen las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza para beneficios culturales, económicos y sociales. Otra de las barreras que se han identificado más específicamente para el caso de Uruguay es la falta de experiencias, que muchas veces son escasas o también se las relaciona mucho a la mitigación al cambio climático. Y también la ausencia de indicadores y de métricas mensuradas para monitoreo y evaluación. No hay indicadores que estén territorializados y que se pueda medir el impacto directo de las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza. Hay más barreras que se han identificado y que las localidades de ambos países comparten. Una tiene que ver con la limitada capacidad local. Se distingue que hay una limitada capacidad a nivel técnico y también de las estructuras legislativas. En el caso particular de República Dominicana, se considera que falta cooperación entre las ciudades y también entendimiento de fondos que puedan financiar las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza y que le darían mayor espacio en los marcos normativos. Y por último, en Uruguay también se identifica una ausencia de un enfoque sistémico de las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza y que los marcos jurídicos suelen ser lentos, que impiden muchas veces que se incorpore esta perspectiva mediante una actualización o revisión de las normativas y que también falta un mecanismo que integre la perspectiva local a la perspectiva nacional y la planificación urbana con las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza. En definitiva, las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza forman parte de las agendas nacionales y siempre tenemos que tener en consideración de mirar a las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza con un enfoque holístico y que no se las considere como proyectos independientes, porque esto puede generar una mala adaptación al cambio climático. En primer lugar, va a ser necesario poder entender los múltiples beneficios y servicios ecosistémicos que nos brindan las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza para convertir a las ciudades más resilientes. Y en segundo lugar, también entender que estas son estrategias emergentes y que pueden reducir las vulnerabilidades y los riesgos del cambio climático. A nivel nacional, las posibilidades de poder involucrar las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en Uruguay tiene que ver con la revisión o la actualización de ciertos marcos normativos. El primero podría ser la Estrategia Nacional para la Conservación y Uso Sostenible de la Diversidad Biológica, y el segundo podría ser la Estrategia Nacional de Ciudades Sostenibles, pudiendo incorporar los ejes de vulnerabilidad e infraestructura verdes bien definidos. También en el NAP Ciudades se podría incorporar esta perspectiva a través del ordenamiento territorial, integrando el enfoque de SBI. En República Dominicana, este enfoque se podría integrar en la actualización del plan de acción de la ANS, generar algunas estructuras institucionales e interinstitucionales que incorporen en propuestas y en proyectos a nivel local y a corto plazo criterios ambientales y sociales para desarrollar propuestas en las ciudades. A nivel local se podría integrar esta perspectiva de las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza para poder reducir las vulnerabilidades climáticas y los riesgos climáticos a través de distintos instrumentos normativos y de su revisión y actualización, como pueden ser los planes de desarrollo, los planes estratégicos y los planes de ordenamiento territorial. En definitiva, hemos podido identificar que las brechas, los puntos de entrada y las oportunidades para estos dos países de América Latina y el Caribe son coincidentes y que con este proyecto vamos a poder integrar este enfoque de las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en futuros marcos normativos que puedan organizar ciudades y convertirlas en espacios resilientes.
My name is Dr. Nelson Ogunshaki. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of FIDIC, the International Federation of Consulting Engineers. FIDIC is the global representative body for National Association of Consulting Engineers and represents over 1 million engineering professionals and 40,000 firms in around 100 countries worldwide. The buildings and infrastructure sector in which FIDIC members work contribute more than $36 trillion to global GDP. So we are an important business sector to the world with a big climate impact. There is increasing recognition that the two greatest challenges of our time, climate change and biodiversity loss, cannot be meaningfully addressed without a fundamental shift in how we conceptualize, design, and construct our infrastructure. To that end, and in order to raise awareness and understanding of nature-based solutions as effective strategy for addressing climate change, and to promote more widely the concept of nature-positive approach to global infrastructure, FIDIC has worked in partnership with WWF and also our technical partner AECOM on our recently published playbook for nature-positive infrastructure development. This playbook highlights the need for nature-positive infrastructure development to help drive change in our sector and to safeguard our global environment. FIDIC is delighted to promote in the playbook to help make a difference and to educate our industry about what is possible. Globally, there has been growing interest in the potential of nature-based solutions to complement or in some cases even replace traditional or grey infrastructure. Our new playbook provides an insight into global state of play and acts as a tool for supporting the implementation of nature-based solutions. We also see the publication as an exciting starting point of much more ambitious goal of creating a living playbook that will continue to expand global recognition of nature-positive infrastructure approaches for years to come as we progress towards new solutions and construction techniques that are truly nature-positive. FIDIC believes that the playbook for nature-positive infrastructure development projects demonstrates how a wide variety of stakeholders can work together to promote and to show differences that engineers and the wider infrastructure workforce can truly make in ensuring that infrastructure become part of the solution of the global challenges of climate change and biodiversity loss. We believe that there is a need for the playbook for the following key reasons. While nature-positive approaches for infrastructure development may be high on the agenda, to date, there have not been many examples of such projects implemented globally. Second, in general, where there seems to be considerable interest in the potential of nature-based solutions to replace or complement certain functions of traditional grey infrastructure, there is implementation bias towards several well-established approaches, such as reforestation, restoration of wetland, sustainable urban drainage system, etc. There is a limited understanding of the full range of benefits of nature-based solutions. Many of the core benefits of this solution are not well understood, measured, or qualified, which is likely to prevent their further uptake. There is a real need to continue to build the evidence base for nature-positive infrastructure and share examples implemented worldwide. So the playbook for nature-positive infrastructure development will address all of these areas and provide practical solutions to engineers and facilitate a shift in practitioners' norms towards nature-positive infrastructure development. The playbook key principle Best practices and success stories highlight the potential for nature-based solutions to contribute to sustainable development goals. The information and example outlined in the publication will enable all those who read it or use it to gain a deeper understanding of the practical application and benefit of nature-based solutions. Both FIDIC and WWF also see the starting point of much more ambitious goal of creating a living playbook that will continue to expand global recognition of nature-positive infrastructure approaches for many years to come. I urge you all to read, study, and apply the playbook for nature-positive infrastructure development and to take all the steps we can now to support a nature-positive approach to global infrastructure that will go a long way to help the world meet its global biodiversity target.
Hello everyone. I'm going to speak to you about the concept of aquascapes, where we're considering the connected systems of fresh waters from their sources through to the sea via transitional waters such as estuaries and lagoons. But first, I have to say that the ideas and the slides I'm presenting here aren't just mine. I'm summarising ideas previously presented by a group of colleagues working in the freshwater and marine realms. And if you wish to see more detailed discussion of the points from my colleagues and I, then I encourage you to check out this Reverse the Red webinar, and the link is highlighted at the bottom of the slide. And I'm especially grateful to Moni Baum from Indianapolis Zoo for helping me pull this information together. Becky Flitcroft of the US Forest Service has pointed out that often in our work we focus on a terrestrial setting, on an ocean, a river, a piece of a landscape, or a specific watershed. What we miss by looking at pieces and chunks of landscape is the cohesive picture of how the entire freshwater system functions. So this is the distribution of the Pacific salmon, and they use freshwater estuaries and oceans, and it's critical to know how the entire aquascape functions for them. It's important in terms of understanding their ecology, and it's important in terms of understanding how to manage this species, which supports local fisheries. So we need cohesive management. But Amanda Vincent from the University of British Columbia has noted that this is one of the greatest challenges of joined up aquascape thinking, that is bringing together the mosaic of agencies and organisations working on aquatic management. The work of institutions, science, practice and policy are often not joined up across the terrestrial, freshwater and marine realms. This lack of connection between inland water and coastal management becomes especially important if one part is a focus for protection and the other isn't. Going back to my title slide, this is a screenshot from a video that describes conservation of coastal ecosystems that are popular surfing areas through the work of the Surf Conservation Partnership. And the conservation work for these coastal sites can be undone if the adjacent rivers also aren't properly managed. Now, this beach site might be well managed, but if the river that feeds into it runs along a deforested area or has massive upstream pollution, then all the coastal management will be negated. The sedimentation or pollution will affect the habitat, and it can affect tourism and recreation along the coast. Here's another example. It's the Guadalquivir River in southern Spain, shown by the red arrow on the map, and it's dumped large amounts of sediment into the Gulf of Cadiz, about 100,000 tonnes estimated in 2008. And this sediment affects tourism and fisheries, including aquaculture. And there's a marine protected area right there in the Gulf. It's the light blue area next to the river mouth, and that will also be affected. So let's look at some solutions. Here's an example from Becky Flitcroft for fishes that use inland, estuarine and marine environments. It's Cascade Head and the Salmon River Estuary in Oregon. In this system, there are riparian protections in place that are intended to afford the stream corridor itself with buffers from land use, such as timber harvest, agriculture and ranching. And the estuary has been protected and restored, and the marine reserve offshore was deliberately sited to align with the protections that are in place within the system. So this isn't just one protection, but a mosaic of different protections to capture the vulnerabilities of the different systems. And I became interested in how extensive these opportunities are. So I took various global data sets that show extent of free-flowing rivers and river protection and compared them to marine protected areas. And if we zoom in on some areas as examples, we can see conservation opportunities and where there are mismatches. Here, the parts of the free-flowing rivers where more than 30% of the upstream watershed is protected appear in light blue. We can see that there are free-flowing rivers that are also apparently well protected along the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua and Honduras that are adjacent to marine protected areas, the blue areas in the sea. These are examples of good opportunities of combining the freshwater and marine protection initiatives. But if we look at Western and Central West Africa, we can see places where there are marine protected areas with free-flowing rivers into them that don't appear to be protected. And so we'd want to see some protection of those rivers. Also, if we look at the coast of Sierra Leone and Liberia, we can see a bunch of nice free-flowing rivers, and it would be great to coordinate protecting that part of the coast along with the rivers. Recognising that there are opportunities to spatially link up freshwater and marine areas and achieve mutually beneficial conservation and management, we can also look at how they are better managed. Erin Lowry, who works for the Wonders of the Mekong project, led a paper that synthesised some key themes and highlighted case studies of both marine and freshwater protected areas. The themes they explored included aspects of the ecological system, establishment approaches, effectiveness monitoring, sustaining the protected areas, and addressing challenges and external threats. And I won't go through them all now. If you go to the Reverse the Red webinar, you can hear Erin discuss these in detail. It's enough to say here that despite some obvious differences between marine and freshwater protected areas, there are definite similarities. So there could be some exchange of different types of spatial planning tools and approaches used. For example, there's an inherent shared human dimension of marine and freshwater protected areas. Stakeholder engagement is crucial from the beginning, regardless of where the protected area is, and co-management can be a useful model in both realms. These are all important areas for exploring collaborations and for sharing best practices and lessons learned. So why is this important now? Well, several NGOs and initiatives have been thinking carefully about freshwater conservation in the light of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. For example, we're developing key messages and guidelines on freshwater restoration for Target 2 and freshwater protection for Target 3. But if we do our job correctly for those targets, then this can also help us address other global biodiversity framework targets like targets 9 to 11 and sustainable development goal targets that address the wise and sustainable use of freshwaters and the delivery of natural benefits. At the UN Water Conference in March of this year, we saw the launch of the Freshwater Challenge, which is a country-led initiative that aims to leverage the support needed for restoration of about 30% of freshwater ecosystems by 2030. That's 300,000 kilometres of rivers and 350 million hectares of wetlands. And the Challenge's goals are highlighted as a priority for the upcoming Climate COP28 process. And of course, it will be very important to identify where the restoration of inland waters as part of the Freshwater Challenge will also bring advantages to coastal sites. So thank you for listening, and here are the affiliations of my colleagues who have also been working on this.
There are increasing calls for transformational change to combat global warming. We are asked to change the way we behave, what we eat, the cars we drive, the buildings we live in. But how often do we consider changing the rules that we live within? Those rules are policies, often set by governments. By changing policies, we can change lives. UNDP's new Nature Pledge is a commitment to support over 140 countries to reach ambitious biodiversity targets, for which changing policies and practices is essential. Countries lead the policy changes which are grounded in local communities and indigenous peoples. UNDP works with governments on food and agricultural commodity systems. Together, they introduce a range of new and updated policies that support more sustainable agricultural commodity production. By protecting ecosystems and minimizing deforestation, agricultural commodity systems transformation offers huge potential for both mitigation and adaptation to climate change. This short video looks at this policy work in 3 key countries: Indonesia, Liberia, and Paraguay. By developing or improving 19 land use policies, 129 million tonnes of CO2 emissions was saved. The UNDP-led Good Growth Partnership was founded by the Global Environment Facility. As GEF CEO Carlos Manuel Rodriguez says, "At the end of the day, it's a mixture of good market and good policies that lead to transformation." In agricultural commodity systems, policy work can be split into 2 aspects: where to produce and how to produce. Land use policies define where to produce, and sustainable farming practices guide how to produce. We'll start with policies around where to produce. In Indonesia, new policies protected 824,000 hectares of high conservation value, HCV, and high carbon stock, HCS, areas. The new policies encourage any development to take place on already cleared land because they forbid new clearance in the most critical areas. In Liberia, community conservation agreements are the key policy innovation, protecting 5,000 hectares of high conservation value forest. They limit practices by pit sawing and charcoal production and empower local communities as forest stewards. In Paraguay, cattle ranching threatens the Chaco savanna. New policies map 7 million hectares of HCV and HCS areas to provide inputs into decision-making on land use planning. So, policies covering land use changes protect ecosystems and reduce deforestation. But once you've decided to use the right land, how do you ensure the right things are done with it? Policies on sustainable production techniques benefit farmers and their communities. In Indonesia, smallholders need support. They need to increase productivity and shift to more sustainable agricultural practices. This reduces the risk they'll expand production through deforestation. New policies are promoting companies' support to smallholders and the development of private extension service provision to support farmers to grow more sustainably. In Liberia, the country's palm oil policies are now in line with world standards. The Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil National Interpretation Process adapted the global principles and criteria. In the Liberian context, this included defining the minimum wage for workers and which expansion practices were allowed. Now, Liberia joins a network of 94 RSPO countries. In the Paraguayan Chaco, the need for policy change is dramatically different. Here, wildlife such as the jaguar prey on livestock, especially calves, leading to ranchers hunting them. To avoid this killing of endangered species, a proposed jaguar management protocol was developed with support from GGP. It includes video surveillance, appropriate fencing and other prevention and deterrence methods. A healthy stock of natural prey for jaguars is also provided. In this way, jaguar populations can coexist within the beef production landscapes. So, how are these policy changes developed? Typically, there are 5 main steps. Each of these takes time. The aim is to transform whole food systems. That means having a truly inclusive multi-stakeholder process with everyone involved in cycles of deep collaboration. At UNDP, we call this effective collaborative action. Let's take a look at the development of Indonesia's land use policies supporting sustainable palm oil. First of all, there's a full assessment of HCV and HCS areas, checked on the ground and fully consulted with all interested parties. This might take 6 months to complete. Second, the land use plan is developed by a multi-stakeholder policy task force. This includes all the relevant government ministries, the private sector, farmer groups and so on. This stage could take a year. Third is policy development, taking 6 to 15 months. All levels of government have to be engaged. A policy brief is produced. After public consultation, the draft policy is finalised. At the 4th stage, the policy is legalised, placed on the statute books. This could take up to a year. It should unlock a budget and capacity for implementation. It will enable the new policy to be legally enforceable. Finally, It's time to implement and enforce the policy, and to improve it based on lessons from implementation. But even now, the policy process isn't over because it's essential that these policies take hold at every geographical level. A national policy is a strong enabler. The same policy principles at regional, district and local levels have to be in place if we're to achieve the change we want to see. Hence the importance of socialising the policy at all the necessary levels. In this short video, we've looked at how governments create the context for change to happen. The right policies can encourage the transformation of agricultural commodity systems to become equitable, resilient and sustainable. Policy change takes time, and it needs an experienced partner such as UNDP to guide the process. As UNDP Administrator Achim Steiner said at the launch of the Nature Pledge, we must work with nature as our most powerful ally if we're to secure the future of people and planet. Policy change helps us to do that.
With over 23 years of history, the Cerrado Agroecological Development Center advises traditional people and communities on access to differentiated markets, participatory certification, agroecology, organic production, and sustainable management of socio-biodiversity. Our work has resulted in a solidarity marketing network for the socio-biodiversity bioeconomy, covering the Cerrado, Amazon, and Caatinga biomes, present in 156 municipalities, involving more than 6,200 families of extractivists, indigenous people, fishermen, lickers, family farmers, settlers, Maroons, and pasture communities. Considering the current Brazilian context, hunger has doubled in families with children under the age of 10. Only 4 out of 10 families manage to feed themselves fully. 33 million Brazilians have nothing to eat, and 125 million people live with some level of food insecurity, representing more than half of the Brazilian population. 19.3% of female-headed households are exposed to hunger. 18.6% of family farmers face hunger in their daily lives, and the pandemic has been amplified due to the deactivation of public policies, lack of credit, and the worsening climate crisis, which make this class even more vulnerable. 81.8% of family farmers in Brazil have no technical assistance. Hunger in Brazil reveals a frightening social divide, both in rural areas, where hunger is at its worst, and in cities, where the number of people living in poverty is high. Hunger is absolutely higher and affects 27 million people. Linked to this reality, in Brazil, each citizen consumes 7.5 kilos of pesticides per year. In more than 2 decades, the per capita consumption of poison has been 450% higher than in previous years. We have 4,644 pesticide registrations in Brazil, and in 2021 alone, 562 new products. It is estimated that there are more than 700,000 cases of cancer in Brazil every year. The Cerrado is the second largest biome in South America and the second largest in Brazil, in addition to being the most biodiverse savanna in the world. Its water resources that balance and exchange with the Amazon biome make it essential for maintaining the world's biodiversity. Without the coexistence of the Cerrado, the Amazon is threatened. With the aim of contributing to the fight against hunger, the mitigation of climate change by connecting family farming, traditional people and communities to people in vulnerable situations in the city by providing real food free of any type of agrotoxins, and promoted by Agroecology, SEDAC created the Brazil Plus Agroecology Program. The Brazil Plus Agroecology Program has 6 lines of action, from production to marketing, consumption and food security, social biodiversity, public policies, climate change mitigation and adaptation, and gender and generation. What we want to achieve with the program? Increase the food and nutritional security of participating families. Start the program with 200 family farmers and gatherers in agroecology farming, reach 100% of these producers in the next 5 years. Start the program with 200 families living in extreme poverty with a focus on women, reaching 100% of this group in the next 5 years. Expand the municipal supply of organic agroecological fruit and vegetables from family farms. To have approved the municipal laws on the Brasil Mais Agroecológico program, the inclusion of organic or agroecological-based food in school meals, and the policy to combat climate change. To have included in the ecological ICMS law the accounting of areas with organic certification as a criteria. Encourage better performance in the transfer of municipal ICMS through the issuance of invoices for the entry and exit of family farmers by Copo Cerrado. Encourage and increase the number of socio-biodiversity projects sold with invoices, reflecting an increase in the municipality's gross domestic product. Monitor the level of food health of the population covered by the program, as well as the demand index for municipal hospital care. If you are part of represent a public authority and are interested in learning more about the Brazil Plus Agroecology program, contact SEDAC. Visit our social networks, and you can also scan the QR code that appears on the screen and access more information about SEDAC and the Brazil Plus Agroecology program.
I'm excited to have the opportunity today to speak to you about our policy brief on supporting socio-bioeconomies of standing forests and flowing rivers in the Amazon. In particular, I'm going to go through the why we need to do this and how we can do it. As you probably already know, the Amazon basin is one of the most culturally and biologically diverse places on the planet. Yet it continues to experience massive ecological damage. As of today, we've already cleared 18% of the original forests, and we've impacted 20% of the waterways through dams and pollution. All of these are bringing us closer to irreversible impacts on the local climate and continuing to harm the well-being of people that live in the Amazon. Now, historically, the rationale for this ecological damage was that it was necessary to promote economic development. In particular, the governments of the past were encouraging cattle ranching in the region and commodity agriculture. And it was thought that by advancing these practices and clearing the forests and getting rid of historic, barbaric, traditional practices, that it would bring gains in well-being to the region. However, we only need to look at the statistics to see that health, income, and educational achievements in the region are 20% lower than the areas outside the Amazon. And we can see that the 80% of the areas that are occupied by cattle ranching are actually generating very low profits. What's worse is that the ongoing clearing is now having a negative impact on the places that have already been cleared. The regional climate change that's caused by these ongoing clearing is actually now causing losses in yields in agriculture in the existing areas. One study, for example, estimates that regional climate change from ongoing deforestation is leading to a reduction in profits of $100 per hectare on the existing soybean areas. So the whole idea of the socio-bioeconomy is that you're actually designing all of the broader economic structures around maintaining and restoring the forests and rivers of the region. And you're trying to take advantage of their unique biological and cultural value, specifically to support the well-being of the communities that live in the Amazon, including indigenous and traditional people. And that all of this has these major benefits to the global community. Another key element of socio-bioeconomies is that they place justice, especially for women, youth, and Indigenous people as a core value. Similarly, socio and biological diversity are another major value of the socio-bioeconomy. The point is, you're elevating these two values above economic efficiency and economic growth. And that means they're explicitly targeted around the goal of combating poverty and inequality and tackling systemic inequities in power. So now you may be wondering what exactly qualifies as socio-bioeconomy activities. I'm going to give a few examples. And what's important to keep in mind here is that it's not just about the land use, but all of the other value-added activities that support those land uses. So for one, we have native forest conservation and restoration supported through carbon and biodiversity payments. Native nut cultivation is another option, coupled with processing of these nuts so that they actually bring value to local communities. Another example is fruit cultivation, but not in monocultures, in diverse agroforestry systems, and again, coupled with processing and transportation infrastructure that can get high-valued products to new markets. Another one is harvesting plants and oils, especially for cosmetics, and making sure that those cosmetics contracts come with fair trade aspects that bring fair prices to the communities that are harvesting the plant ingredients. Another one is sustainable community-based management of fisheries, and then finally, community-based ecotourism. It's important to note that socio-bioeconomy activities are not a new thing. The underlying land use practices have been around for thousands of years, practiced by Indigenous people. And even in their modern form, studies have mapped out these socio-bioeconomy practices and have found over 200 of these activities throughout the Amazon basin in over 90 plus municipalities. What's new is thinking about this as a top-down sort of economic strategy for the Amazon basin, to try to think of this as a coherent policy mix that can scale up and create synergies between the existing activities, bring them to new communities, and support them. It's estimated that these existing socio-bioeconomy activities already generate $1.4 billion US per year. And one study estimates that they could generate $8.2 billion US per year by 2050. Now let's compare that to cattle ranching, which I've already said occupies 80% of the already cleared areas. Cattle ranching on all of that area, not compatible with the standing forest and flowing rivers, generates only $1.8 billion per year. So at the Science Panel for the Amazon, we got together and tried to come up with 5 major policy recommendations that could help support these socio-bioeconomies. The first one is to continue with the efforts to halt deforestation and degradation by strengthening the existing deforestation restrictions, monitoring programs, and enforcement of these policies. This is, of course, critical to stop further harms to the socio-bioeconomy and the indigenous and traditional people that support these socio-bioeconomies. The second major policy recommendation is to establish an inclusive and collaborative socio-bioeconomy planning process. This means building the cross-scalar networks that are necessary to share experiences and building better international cooperation between Amazonian nations and between the Amazon Basin region and foreign countries that want to support avoided deforestation and ecological degradation, as well as poverty alleviation in the region. The third key action is massively increasing the amount of finance going to socio-bioeconomy activities. This means increasing research and development investment and improving the financial conditions so that they're compatible with socio-bioeconomy activities. This might mean extending the amount of time period you have to pay back a loan, or adding in insurance for these higher upfront costs that you might have to pay to establish something new. It also means investing in the critical infrastructure that's needed to really generate high-value products. So the transportation infrastructure, electrification, the marketing pathways, the right value chains, especially to connect emerging markets to rural areas. But finally, a key component of the whole finance picture means taking finance away from harmful activities like cattle ranching and soybean farming and redirecting them into more sustainable ones. A fourth pillar of our policy recommendations is to enhance circular economy connections. This means, on the one hand, improving rural-urban linkages to create direct supply chains from rural areas to the growing urban population, which will also support the well-being and nutrition of the urban communities, especially focusing on, for example, schools. Another issue is to focus on better cross-sectoral co-benefits. So as I've just mentioned, schools as one cross-sectoral benefit between conservation and education, but there's also benefits to be gained about thinking about health together with conservation and development. For example, by building new condom factories that take advantage of the natural rubber in the region. Those are the types of co-benefits that need to be fostered in the socio-bioeconomy. The final recommendation is to make sure that all of the necessary enabling conditions to support the socio-bioeconomy are put into place. Here we're really talking about all the major issues with land tenure and land rights. So a key thing is strengthening indigenous and local community land rights and creating and supporting new associations and small business enterprises, especially ones that support women and youth who stand to be empowered a lot through the creation of these socio-bioeconomies. In this way, we can bring sustained benefits that support the ongoing well-being of the Amazon basin for the people that live there, as well as helping to protect the global climate.
Today, we've explored many dimensions of how we can encourage actions on nature, but underlying everything is the need to raise awareness about the importance of taking action on nature. So in the last segment for this session, we'll explore different ways through which we can help raise awareness through art, through sports, through game, and much more. Let's listen in.
Hello everyone at the Nature for Life Hub. My name is Chris Thaller. I'm co-founder and creative lead at Anything But Ordinary, a creative agency focusing on bold ideas for big impact. I'd like to begin addressing a challenge that becomes more and more evident in our rapidly urbanizing world today. Urban life doesn't give us a lot of opportunities to interact with nature. We are surrounded by concrete jungles and busy streets, and it's easy to forget about the beauty of the natural world. And this brings me to the heart of our story today. A unique initiative called Run Wild that bridges this gap and connects people closer to the natural wonders of wildlife conservation.
How do we reconnect with nature? How do we shift the global perception of our environment from something we exploit to something we have to protect?
The purpose of this campaign is to protect nature and all the species that are threatened by extinction. And our goal is not only to raise awareness on a global level, our goal is also to bring this impact to the ground. And this is why we're partnering with the real experts, with partners like the UN Environment Program or conservation partners like Species or Internet of Elephants. Imagine running alongside a wild tiger, or an elephant, or matching the pace of a pangolin. Together with my good friend Gautam Shah, National Geographic explorer and founder of Internet of Elephants, I created Run Wild, a virtual running campaign in the Adidas running app set out to raise awareness and engage millions of runners all over the world to join a global movement that stands for the protection of the world's most endangered species. The challenge was simple but very powerful. Over a span of 10 days, we asked our runners to run as far as an iconic animal, like Tendril, a tiger in Bhutan, or Ulen, a mountain lion in Mongolia, or Pamoja, a pangolin in Kenya. What made this challenge so unique, though, was that these animals weren't just symbols. They were real wild animals, GPS colored and tracked by our conservation partners. And the best part of it was that without revealing their exact location, we shared real movement data with our runners as their daily fitness goal. But Run Wild was way more than just a running challenge. It told stories about the animals, their homes, and all the challenges they face in a very fun and engaging way. Like Pamoja looking for roommates, or Ulen looking for livestock because his natural prey had disappeared. And these stories weren't just stories. They created a deep connection between the runner and the animal. The success of Run Wild was a collaborative effort of multiple organizations. And even UN Deputy General Antonio Guterres called it in his speech on Mountain Day a moving show of solidarity. Adidas Runtastic, a mobile health and fitness provider owned by Adidas, played the main role in the campaign by hosting the challenge in its Adidas running app. My friend Gautam and his agency Internet of Elephants provided us with his excellent engagement expertise and wildlife storytelling. The United Nations Environment Programme added its power to the cause, and last but not least, our conservation partners shared invaluable research data and wildlife expertise.
An alarming new report just released by the UN that says roughly 1 million species are on the verge of extinction, more than any other time in recorded history. And as CNN's Bill Weir reports, experts warn it will have grave impacts on humans as well.
Run Wild was and still is our creative call to action. It's a powerful demonstration on how the United Nations and the private sector can play together to create change in our world. It is a reminder that each one of us, no matter where we are in the world, can make a difference in the protection of the world's most endangered species. Our world is in big trouble, there is no question about it. Forests are burning, glaciers are melting, the oceans are drowning in plastic pollution, and the world's most iconic animals are disappearing for good. So let's create new ideas, big ideas that can turn things around. Let's be bold, let's be anything but ordinary, not just for ourselves, but for the beautiful natural world we are all living in.
Hello, my name is Isabel Carrió, and I would like to introduce you the Creative Action Institute, an organization that advances community-driven solutions to gender inequities and climate justice. Our programs are in Africa, mostly in the East and West regions, and in Latin America. We focus on community-based solutions because we believe those closest to the challenges are best equipped to identify and implement solutions. Those solutions are coming from them with their views and realistic perspectives on community resilience, which is one of our programs as well. Through our experiential programs, Creative Action Institute develops strong leaders, build networks, and support grassroots advocacy strategies that incorporate arts, creative thinking methodologies to shift behaviors for a more sustainable planet. And you might be thinking, how does it work? And how the power of arts-based methods works to promote whole of society approaches for nature. We will invite you to hear from 3 partner organizations, One Planet from Peru, FOREP from Cameroon, and Ecologic Development Fund in Guatemala, to understand more about their experience incorporating into their existing work the power of art for social action.
Hello, I'm Eri Stephanie Lama. I'm an environmental and climate justice advocate with Forest Resources and People Cameroon. We have had beautiful collaborations with CAI through our creative advocacy practicums, which have been hosted twice in Cameroon. We've been able to mobilize, work together with over 100 children 2 times to engage them in climate change, in climate action, and also to build their capacities on climate advocacy and on climate leadership. We've used creative art tools like Each One Teach One, Step into the Circle, Vision Board, Mind Map. We've used tools like Images on the Wall, Council of All Beings, and colorful thinking hats. These have enabled our children in these clubs to understand climate change better and to be able to engage and collaborate with us in executing climate action. Through our creative advocacy practicums, we've established home gardens in schools and engaged our children from our clubs to take part in landscape restoration activities. We've mobilized over 2,000 community members to engage with our tree planting activities and in participating in our climate advocacy parade. For the first time, we've been able to host 2 climate advocacy parades in our community that has mobilized both parents, children, and road users to engage in climate action. It has been lovely working with CAI, and we see a need to continue our collaboration. Our children have become more creative. Our children now understand climate change from a very basic level, and they are able to collaborate effectively with us in class, and life in the classroom has been made very simple. Some of these tools have also been passed on to women in rural communities where we've built their capacities on climate leadership differently. We continue partnership with CAI, and we are looking forward to more creative advocacy practicums. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Mario Ardani de León Benítez, oficial de programas para Ecology en Guatemala. Desde hace varios años hemos coordinado acciones con NEBF y con CAI, principalmente en acciones de metodologías participativas que nos han permitido llegar a realizar un trabajo mucho más fácil y comprensible con agricultores, con personas que protegen bosques, con comunidades indígenas, en diferentes regiones de Guatemala, principalmente en Totonicapán. Debemos agradecer a CAI el apoyo brindado durante el año 2022, ya que en el proyecto de Totonicapán logramos capacitar a 30 jóvenes en acciones de liderazgo creativo. Realmente se utilizaron algunas herramientas y algunos métodos de capacitación. Tal es el tema de conocimiento de prácticas ancestrales, en donde también los jóvenes elaboraron un proyecto. Después de elaborar el proyecto, los jóvenes lo presentaron y el proyecto fue el de escribir mensajes de la conservación de los recursos naturales a través de cintas, las cuales fueron colocadas en un lugar visible. En este caso, la presentación se realizó en el vivero de los 48 cantones de Totonicapán, con algunos mensajes bien importantes. Por ejemplo, cuida el agua, cuida el bosque, es nuestra naturaleza. Al final, mensajes bien concretos, bien claros, colocados en un lugar de bastante importancia. Ha sido bien fácil manejar a estos grupos con las metodologías y las herramientas que CAI y NEBF nos han proporcionado. Les agradezco bastante.
My name is Elizabeth Benson. I'm Director of Field Operations for One Planet here in the Peruvian Amazon. For over a decade, we've partnered with the Maijuna people in pursuit of community organization, biocultural conservation, and the defense of Maijuna ancestral lands. Through the Creative Advocacy Practicum, we trained 25 Maijuna kids from 3 different communities in audiovisual production. Then the kids between ages 12 and 18 turned those skills to look at their own communities and create 4 short films that reflect their identities and their place in the defense of their culture and rainforest. The process took place over the course of a week in the community of Nueva Vida. We used the Creative Action Institute's tools to facilitate exploration with the kids of various aspects of their community and their ancestral forest. Our facilitators then trained the kids using audiovisual equipment, everything from sound, lighting, editing, cameras, and drones, to prepare them to tell their own stories. In 4 groups, they created short films that centered on themes celebrating Maijuna identity, culture, and how they're imbued with a connection to the forest and its conservation. One short focused on how Maijuna women used Chambira palm fibers for hammock weaving. Another used animation to tell an original narrative. And the others focused on intergenerational transmission of knowledge about the forest and Maijuna culture. Finally, the kids presented their short films in the communities, and the impacts went far beyond 4 videos. The kids found joy in their identity, their community, and forest. And in the process, they gained knowledge about the land and a deeper dedication to its conservation. These kids are on the road to becoming leaders, and they'll be responsible for conserving the land and for securing a future for the Maijuna people. Following the CAP, the current Maijuna authorities and these young leaders are now more committed to being involved in their land conservation, and they're collectively strengthened to celebrate their heritage and to defend their rainforest.
So, what do you think? Our programs enable girls, women, grassroots advocates in remote areas to access transformative trainings and resources. Together, we are tackling pressing issues like we saw deforestation, pollution, the loss of ancestral practices, and threats to wildlife and biodiversity. We would like to invite Jessica Brown, the Executive Director of the New England BioLife Foundation, and ask her, why are you as a donor prioritizing support for these kinds of partnerships and approaches?
Thanks so much, Isa. It's a pleasure to participate in this fireside chat with you and with others who have been involved in CAI's Creative Advocacy Practicum program. It's been great just now to listen to the wonderful stories from our partners at Ecologic and FOREP and One Planet, and to hear how they've transformed their CAPS experience into creative action on the ground. And to hear how they're working with Indigenous and local communities to advance biodiversity conservation and reduce deforestation, revitalize ancestral knowledge, and restore ecosystems. Because all of these activities are front and center to the mission and funding priorities of the New England Biolabs Foundation, where I work, And that's why we're so delighted to be supporting the CAPS program. The foundation has a long history of partnership with the Creative Action Institute, or CAI, as I've been saying, going back to the organization's inception when it was called ArtCorps. And then over time, as Creative Action Institute developed and refined its impressive suite of training and capacity building opportunities, supporting the CAPS program has been a natural evolution of this relationship. As background, for over a decade, we have been partnering with CAI to deliver capacity building workshops to our grantees in our 9 international target countries. And this has involved working with NGOs in very different regions of the world, from Central America to Andean South America to West Africa. I've had the privilege of participating in many of these creative leadership workshops over the years. So I've seen it firsthand in person, and when the pandemic forced a pivot to remote delivery virtually. And I have witnessed such incredible excitement and growth as the participants have been introduced to a range of art-based tools for community facilitation and empowerment, and for work not only in their communities, but in their own organizations. What we would see, though, then, is that our partners would return to their communities with all of these new ideas and tools gained from the workshops, eager to implement them, but sometimes lacking the support they needed. The CAI team quickly realized the importance of coaching and mentoring, and found ways to provide this kind of support both virtually and in person, but still there was a missing piece. Often what the partners needed was just a little financial support in order to actually implement the project. And that's why the mini grants element of the CAPS program is such a brilliant addition. When CAI approached us with this idea, we were ready to support it right away. The New England Biolabs Foundation staff and board could see the value of this approach, and we were happy to entrust CAI with the regranting of these funds, knowing that they would be able to leverage this support into so much good work in the countries and communities where our partners are working. And that's exactly what we have just seen here in this little see a glimpse of it in this fireside chat today, along with the examples that were featured here from Agroecology and One Planet, are other CAPS projects all over the world, addressing issues such as plastics pollution in the Gulf of Honduras, loss of pollinators in the Mayan golden landscape of Belize, food sovereignty in rural communities of Nicaragua, and integrated waste management by communities in the Volta region of Ghana. So lots of really exciting impact on the ground from a relatively small investment of funding through these mini grants. But of course, it's so much more than just one thing. It's not just mini grants. It's not just capacity building or coaching. It's the way that all of these elements work together in an integrated approach. That's really the secret behind this wonderful program. And that's why, as a donor, our foundation is so proud to be supporting the Creative Action Institute's CAPS program. It's a holistic model of how capacity building and training can lead to real action on the ground. Thank you.
I'm Malia Acker, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher serving as a project lead for the Engage with Nature-Based Solutions initiative. The Engage with Nature-Based Solutions initiative is a 5-year program funded by Environment and Climate Change Canada and centered at the University of Victoria in British Columbia, Canada. We're working to support communities who apply nature-based solutions to their local lands and waters. We acknowledge and take inspiration from Indigenous peoples whose cultures and traditions support healthy ecosystems and the interconnection and importance of all living things. Nature-based solutions are actions to protect, sustainably manage, or restore natural ecosystems such as wetlands, grasslands, forests, oceans, and shorelines. Nature-based solutions address societal challenges such as climate change, human health, food and water security, and disaster risk. Nature-based solutions simultaneously provide for greater human well-being and for biodiversity. Nature-based solutions are important because human activities are currently out of balance with nature. Increased greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere are changing the climate of the planet, resulting in extreme temperatures, floods, droughts, wildfires, and increasing biodiversity loss. Nature-based solutions can help mitigate this unbalance by sequestering carbon, providing habitat, increasing biodiversity, and decreasing the impact of human-caused climate change. The ENBS initiative has several projects on the go. We are building a digital toolkit that will supply a resource library and a repository of images and infographics on nature-based solutions. We're creating a UN Sustainable Development Goals linked curriculum for school-aged children across the country that focuses on nature-based solutions as they can be applied to local ecosystems such as streams, wetlands, forests, estuaries, and grasslands. We're also constructing a series of ArcGIS story maps to educate citizens on local nature-based solutions happening in their region. Story maps are interactive, visually based scrolling websites that integrate maps, video, photography, audio, and text into the story of a place. Storytelling is a powerful tool for change. Our community stories inspire and educate, illustrating successful nature-based solutions partnerships within local communities. The first few of these story maps have been based in the South Coast region of BC. Other regions are being added in upcoming years of the project. Templates for additional story maps and assistance for constructing them will also be available. Finally, we're creating a series of local by nature educational videos, which serve as showcase pieces and demonstrations of environmental restoration work in the South Coast region. This spring, however, we're launching another facet of our program, the first chapter of our National Artist Commission program. Earlier this year, 5 Canadian artists whose work straddles the science-art divide created research creation projects and presented their work to their communities. Out of this project, we saw the creation of sculpture, writing, and a digital visualization program. Artists then held workshops in Charlottetown, Alert Bay, Victoria, and Cortes Island to disseminate the work, to invite conversations between scientists, artists, and community members, and to educate the public on nature-based solutions for current environmental challenges, such as flooding, climate change, drought, climate grief, and watershed degradation. The artist workshops allow ENBS to extend its reach into local arts and environmental communities across the country, building relationships, opening doors for future collaboration, and educating attendees about nature-based solutions and about the environmental work being undertaken in their region. ENBS will launch Year 2 of its Artist Commission program this fall, inviting 3 more artists to create pieces from across the country. We'd like to invite you to visit our website and get involved. You can subscribe to our newsletter, read about the artists already commissioned, you can visit our resource library, you can view our story maps. And if you have suggestions for Canadian artists you think would be a good fit for the commission program, let us know. Thanks for joining us in the launch of this exciting new program.
Hello everyone, I'm Professor Fumilola Ajani from the Initiative for Biodiversity Conservation in Sub-Saharan Africa, IBSA, Nigeria. I'll be talking on the determinants of successful biodiversity and environmental conservation awareness campaign for impressive results. Biodiversity and environmental conservation campaign is key to enlightenment in a community, and if this is not properly done, it can lead to effort in futility, yielding very little or no result. I'll shed light on 7 determinants that is very, very important. The first determinant is preparation. Preparation births success, and this stage is very critical because failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So also the importance of reconnaissance survey cannot be overemphasized at this particular juncture, in which the person who wants to do the campaign needs to pay a visit to the community or school of his or her choice to inquire about their core values, the language best understood by them, and the age range. This is very important, and all these should be penciled down for the second stage. The second determinant is developing content. This may take time depending on the expertise of those developing the content, and all what was penciled down during the preparation stage needs to be brought to the table at this particular stage to develop a robust content for delivery. For example, what the organization which I belong to do is that we have a subgroup called graphics subgroup, and this subgroup develop all the content for the different primary, secondary schools, the different outreaches we embark on. And what they do, like for primary school pupils without any source of electricity, they have designed a short playlet which will be staged and drive home the point of the advocacy. And for those having a source of electricity, an animated video was crafted for those kind of schools, and so on and so forth. The third determinant is funding. In my volunteering experience in IPSA and some other organizations, I've been able to discover that funding is germane for any important program that is being planned. And if funding is limited, it can limit the productivity and smooth logistics of the advocacy. The fourth determinant is motivating and arousing the interest of the audience. This is very important, and the different age groups need to be taken into cognizance at this particular juncture in order for them to be able to listen and imbibe the delivery of the advocacy. What arouses the interest of an adult can possibly not arouse the interest of the kids. So in my volunteering experience, I discovered that theory without practicals yields very, very minimum results. And I recall the event planned by IPSA this year for World Environment Day with the theme Beat Plastic Pollution, in which we invited Planet 3R and her team for the event. After the keynote presentation, hands-on practicals came up, in which she and her team took the different schools, grouped in different groups. Through the practical session, they made wall hangers, foot mat, praying mat from cardboards, pure water sachet nylons, and old clothes. For basic schools, that is primary schools, different activities can be built into their mode of delivery, like painting or coloring of biodiversity species of biological importance, trees. I remember a particular school which we went to for advocacy. After the talk, we asked these pupils to draw a choice house in which they will want to build in the nearest future, and place trees around it, like 1 or 2 trees around it to beautify the house. And these children, they did marvelously well. It was so fascinating. They drew the houses and the trees, and this went a long way in driving home the point of our advocacy on what they can do to reduce the effect of climate change in their environment. The 5th determinant is time management, and the first thing to consider in children is that they have a shorter attention span, and this prorates across the different age ranges. Therefore, an advocate of change should be mindful of the time he or she will spend in the advocacy, so as to have a very, very rewarding event. The 6th determinant is formation of club, and this is very, very important. From my years of experience as a lecturer and a facilitator of knowledge, I have discovered that tree planting carried out without being backstopped by some people who see themselves as stakeholders in their own right yields very, very minimum results. Therefore, the formation of volunteers into conservation clubs is very, very important, because it is these people who take care of those trees and make sure that everything go well in their environment. This has worked so far for us, because these people, they see themselves as stakeholders in their own right and an integral part of our initiative. The 7th determinant is visitation. This is very, very crucial to motivate and encourage these students. In conclusion, to have a successful and impactful biodiversity and environmental conservation awareness campaign for optimum results, these points and some others should be taken into cognizance. Thank you.
We all know Greta Thunberg and what she has done and she's still doing to involve students, common people, and politicians around the world to fight against climate change. Greta has a mental disability, but she uses it to become more focused to fight against climate change. But how many kids with intellectual disabilities can do the same? How many schools or environmental organization or nature club can support those kids in becoming environmental activists or simply in enjoying nature on a daily basis? I'm Chiara Manghetti and I work for LIPU BirdLife Italy as environmental education and training manager. And I'm here to present a new program that we have started this year, A Superpower to Defend Nature. This is a program with the aim to involve more kids with mental disability in becoming environmental activists and in enjoying nature more. It all started from some environmental organizations partner of the BirdLife network. HOS, BirdLife Greece, BirdLife Malta, SEO, BirdLife Spain, and LIPU, BirdLife Italy. All those organizations have a great experience in involving thousands of children and kids every year in environmental activism and in nature activities. But we all felt that we were missing something, or maybe we were missing someone. How can we transform effective environmental programs into effective environmental programs for all, including children and kids with mental disabilities? How can we get more teachers involved in supporting kids and students in outdoor education and in environmental activities? How can we get more families with those kids going outside and enjoying nature together? Thanks to the EU program called Erasmus+, we had the possibility to share our ideas and develop a new program with a great team of experts in mental disabilities coming from Greece, Malta, and Italy. What is a superpower to defend nature? It's a program that develops and offers trainings and tools to 3 different audiences: environmental guides and environmental educators, teachers, and families with kids with mental disabilities. Of course, all the activity and programs that we have developed have been tested with kids and students, and we are still experimenting new programs every month. We are all deeply aware that we need everybody on board with us to fight to save our planet. It's our duty as educators and as environmentalists to find new and effective ways not only to make nature accessible to everyone, but to actively involve every child. Please, if you want to know more about this program, just write to me or click on the link in the description below. Thank you. Ciao!
Our biggest environmental challenges are behavioral challenges. So to address them, we need behavioral solutions. Understanding the science of human behavior and what influences people to change is important to develop something that works. Yet even with this knowledge, applying behavioral science in practice is another challenge. It can be overwhelming to know where to start. Enter design thinking, a people-focused approach for solving tough problems. It helps us encourage change by designing for people's motivations and barriers, rather than relying on our own assumptions or preferences. Behavior-centered design, BCD, is an approach that blends behavioral science and design thinking to create breakthrough solutions to environmental challenges. BCD provides a series of steps for environmental practitioners, program designers, and other changemakers to develop solutions that help individuals and communities adopt new behaviors that benefit themselves and the planet. Let's explore the BCD approach. Our journey begins with framing the context of the problem, the stakeholders involved, their current behaviors, and the behaviors that will lead to our desired outcomes. Once we identify our desired behavior and target audience, we conduct qualitative and quantitative research to empathize with individuals' experiences, motivations, and barriers for adopting the desired behavior. Using these data, we can map connections between what we learned to behavioral science principles and then make hypotheses about what is most likely to change behavior. Using our hypotheses, we ideate solutions, creating and combining ideas based on our understanding of behavioral science and the challenge at hand. Now, we make a prototype, our small-scale version of our solution. This helps us to make our ideas tangible without investing a lot of time and resources. With our idea brought to life, we can now test our solution with a segment of our audience and get feedback about its effectiveness. We may need to do this multiple times as we refine different parts of our solution. Once our behavioral solution shows signs of success, we launch at the scale necessary to achieve our desired outcome. We can then assess and monitor the impact of our solution on our desired outcomes, so we know if behavior change is happening and to what degree. BCD is iterative and not necessarily linear. For instance, we may return to or repeat a step to gather more information. These moments are all part of the journey. Behavior-centered design puts people at the heart of environmental solutions, so we can motivate change among the people and in the places we care about the most. Learn more at behavior.rare.org.
Colleagues and friends, that concludes part 1 of today's program on All In for Nature. But stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few moments for part 2, taking a closer look at ways to engage everyone for nature.